What's up, Fantasy Champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now, with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Do you like the Oakland A's? Are you a fan of the Golden Knights? Do you love the Los Angeles Chargers? Well then, my friend, you're in the right place. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show with your host, Jake the Snake SIlva, brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network.
All right. I'm going all Matthew McConaughey here in tonight's episode on a Tuesday. This is the Snake Sports Talk Show, wherever and however you may be watching and listening today. We're live in the 702 on all social media platforms, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. Really do appreciate all of you guys jumping on. As I see, we had a couple of viewers here earlier. We've got Luke, we've got Niners fan for life, and we've got a bunch of people here in tonight's episode of the Spotlight, or on the Snake Sports Talk Show on the Spotlight Sports Network. Really do appreciate every single one of you guys for coming on. And my co-host Jeremy, he's going to be joining me here in just a little bit, just kind of running a little bit late, but I'm here with you guys. I appreciate every single one of you guys here being here tonight. And of course, with the Spotlight Sports Network, you guys continuing to love and support the network, and of course, supporting the show as a whole. It really does mean a lot. I know a lot of people have had some questions and have had some concerns as well about where my presence has been in the last couple of days. I've taken at least a slight step back. There were a lot of things that were kind of going on in my personal life, and and it really just kind of shaped up to where, I was supposed to do an episode last night, but my mind itself was just still not up into the clear. I've taken at least a different approach at life in the last couple of days. There were some things that I needed to adjust, and there were some things that I really needed to just kind of look at thoroughly and really just kind of understand. And on top of that, for those that have seen and those that have contacted me and have asked me of my presence, it's been kind of a hard, difficult time in the last couple days. Just this past weekend, I ended up getting some sad news in my family, mostly for my family in New York on my mother's side, that my grandmother in her 70s has unfortunately passed away. And it had been tough with my family. It had been tough with my mother and for a lot of us. And I'm doing okay. I'm kind of, processing this as much as I possibly can. And there were times where, just my mind was not right. And the last thing I wanted to do was to be up onto the show, unprepared, not having a whole lot of energy like I usually do on the show. So I won't get into too much of further details, but those were the things that were kind of going on in my personal life. But I really, really do appreciate everybody's understandings, concerns, and supports as well. You guys have been very supportive. I really, really do appreciate you guys. And I'm just excited enough to be here tonight, just to be talking, because I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for my insights on a lot of things. And, so digging in deep to it before Jeremy shows up and everything else. And then we're going to go ahead and get into it. So I really do appreciate it, you guys. So let's go ahead and get started with what we came here for tonight, because let me just shift to this, because I know every single one of you guys wanted my inputs and you wanted my insights on the whole on this whole Carson Wentz deal. I know a lot of you guys wanted my insights, you wanted my opinion and my input. And I've told every single one of them, I told every single one of my colleagues, I've told a lot of people, this is a good thing for Carson Wentz. And I've been saying this over and over again. Indianapolis is the type of organization that under Chris Ballard and under Jim Irsay, they have been the type of organization that, yes, they've had to overcome a lot of their struggles. They had to build themselves from the ground up to be where they are. A top 5 offensive line, a top 10 defense. They got weapons. They got a run game. They got all sorts of things. The only missing component is a quarterback. And I've been saying this for a lot of quarterback insights, because there has been a lot of rumor buzzes and a lot of this quarterback carousel moving around. And I really loved this deal. And because initially it could have been anybody. It could have been Sam Darnold. It could have been Dak. It could have been any other quarterback who would have loved to play on this Colts offensive line. And just by the structure alone, this is a stable organization. And let me just tell you this, because this often is like how we have it in life. Carson Wentz. This is how I'm going to end up inputting this. Okay. I dealt with this years ago. I dealt with this, just a year ago, while back. I had a relationship that was just basically going south, and it wasn't going well. At first, it seemed like things were kind of, it seemed like things were very legit. It seemed like it was actually kind of going into the right direction. But after seeing some unspoken truths, seeing a lot of just these ins and outs and all of this dysfunction, it was one that I just could not bear to have in my life. And so initially, the two of us, we made the mutual agreement that it was just never going to happen. It was never going to continue on. And ultimately, with what she was going through, what I was going through, it just kind of ended up to where there was just no solution. There was no, there was no medication or anything that was going to help the problem. And nothing like that. And it was unfortunate, but at the same time, it was something that, for the sake of both of us and for both of our lives, decided to part ways. Carson Wentz and the Philadelphia Eagles, because I said this before in my last segment, like a while back, the Philadelphia Eagles moved off of Carson Wentz since 2017. They built a statue of Nick Foles outside of Lincoln Financial Field. They continue to rant and rave about this Foles is better than Wentz crap that eventually doused out. Okay. And they forget about the quarterback who had an MVP caliber season, who punched the ticket into the playoffs. And I've been saying this over and over again. That Super Bowl victory was a team win. Nobody believed it. Not even for certain Eagle fans believed it. There were only the understandable ones. Like I can tell you right now, Key in the Building, you can check her out on the Spotlight Sports Network at Key in the Building. She understands it. And she thought this is kind of ridiculous. But again, for me, defending Carson Wentz in this whole thing, because this is a team that moved off him since 2017. You build a statue. You kind of just, you kind of play this blame game. And then in the end of it, you start to see the truths. Doug Peterson benches him, puts in Jalen Hurts. And now Carson Wentz was one of the most expensive backup quarterbacks that anybody could ask for. The fact that he signs a 5-year contract, expensive, still managed to get Philadelphia to the playoffs, but we have yet to see him actually perform in a playoff game. That's the one thing that drove Philadelphia fans nuts, because they never see him in a playoff game. But then Doug Peterson shakes up the relationship and the quarterbacks, benches Jalen Hurts, goes and puts in Nate Sudfeld. We're like, what the hell are you doing? Like, what is the meaning of this? Then Doug Peterson loses his job. Now, Howie Roseman is on this hot seat, because in the end of it, here was what was the deal. So Carson Wentz gets traded to the Indianapolis Colts for 2 low-end picks. Like, they literally just got Carson Wentz for nothing. They get a low-end pick of this year's draft. They get a second rounder that could easily turn into a first rounder by the next year. And I think initially it's going to be a first round pick. But in the end, Carson Wentz won this whole thing. Here's where I break this down, because it's going to slap Philadelphia in the face. Because a lot of people want to tell me Carson Wentz isn't that great. Carson Wentz really isn't that good of a quarterback. He makes dumb mistakes. He makes dumb decisions. You know, give him a healthy offensive line. Give him weapons that don't get hurt every time. Give him at least a decent run game that they actually use it. And he's still getting at least a decent defense. He's getting one of the tops. Carson Wentz is getting everything he initially asks for. Because here's the thing about Philadelphia. The roster's too old. There's not really a whole lot of young players. And there's so much voices in the locker room that it just kind of gets so overwhelming. And that's the initial part that just kind of screws up the whole plan. And so now Carson Wentz goes to Indianapolis, a stable organization where you have Chris Ballard, who continuously wows us every time when he makes a move, because he literally got him for nothing. And Chris Ballard is the type of guy that when he puts out his deal, he's just like, this is my deal. Take it or leave it. Otherwise, I'll take my business elsewhere. The Colts were heavily pursuing Derek Carr of the Raiders. And then the Raiders initially just slammed their door and said, Carr is not available. It's about damn time. And I'm going to end up speaking about that in just a few moments. But again, Carson Wentz got exactly what he wanted. He won this deal, and the Colts got what they wanted. They got a quarterback. And here's the thing about this. This is what's really going to hurt Philadelphia. Because now, after Wentz is gone, you now have Jalen Hurts and Nate Sudfeld. And the one thing that they say, there's not a guaranteed starting role. Now there's a quarterback competition. Are you kidding me? Jalen Hurts clearly is going to be the starter for the Eagles. Why are we having this conversation about a quarterback, competition? Nate Sudfeld, you and I saw it. He's not capable of playing in heavy situations. He's not. Jalen Hurts initially was the juice for Philadelphia to pick themselves up, to play better. And that was the one thing that was holding Philadelphia together. But then Doug Peterson's gone. In comes Nick Sirianni, the former offensive coordinator for the Colts. And my God, when you all watched his first ever interview, he butchered that thing. Oh, Lord. He butchered that whole interview. And now it makes you wonder, is Philadelphia really legit? Is Philadelphia really that good of a ran organization? Now, at this point, they look like an absolute mess. But this is the deal that I am pinpointing. Because what seemed like things were legit in a relationship, when you start to see those when you start to kind of see those truths unfold, some of those unmasked truths and everything that just kind of comes out, and putting Carson Wentz in the middle of that, initially he's just like, hell no, I'm out of this place. Because now you don't make him feel loved. And that's initially now the Colts. What do the Colts really offer? What is the one thing we look for in a relationship? We look for communication. We look for stability. We look for support. We look for a lot of things in order to make a relationship work. And to be honest, Carson Wentz got that. Carson Wentz definitely got that with the Colts. There's no debate. There is no question. I think Carson Wentz initially won this whole thing. And it's going to slap Philadelphia in the face because you have an outdated offensive line that can't stay healthy. You've got offensive weapons that now Alshon Jeffrey's out the door, and initially Deshaun Jackson's going to be following him. Now you got to address the wide receiver position. And from what I'm being told, there's reports, and what I see right here is that what the Eagles are going to try to do, they should get Jamar Chase. Don't even think. Don't even have a hesitation of getting Jamar Chase. Do not. Because then there's these reports thinking they might take another quarterback. For what? You're going to try to butcher this whole thing again? There's no point. If you go and get Jamar Chase, because this is the one thing that the Eagles butchered on, was wide receivers. They go and get Jalen Reagor instead of Justin Jefferson, and Justin Jefferson was second in the rookie of the year race to Justin Herbert. Then they go and get J.J. Arcega-Whiteside instead of going and getting somebody like Devontae Adams, and he's balling in Green Bay. They go and get all of these other wide receivers, and they don't pan out for them. So it makes me feel like this is just a mess. This is just an absolute mess. And this is where Howie Roseman being up on the hot seat, he has to nail this draft. He has to nail this draft or he's out. Because this has now become one of those things that Philadelphia and Philadelphia fans are going to realize. They screwed this up. Carson's gone. Doug Peterson's gone. I mean, this is going to be bad. This is going to be bad for Philadelphia. And they're trying to repair this thing. They're trying to use Gorilla Glue to put this thing together. And it's just not going to happen. So I feel like Carson Wentz got the ideal relationship match with the Colts, and Philadelphia just initially just got the reality check. So, I'm going to shift to this because another team that's really kind of getting the reality check is the Houston Texans. And we all kind of know this. Yes, Charles, I'm going to have Jeremy up on here in a second. He's just running late for right now, but he will be on here tonight. So, the Houston Texans, and listen, I hope and pray for a lot of people that are out there in Texas right now, because I know things are not looking great there. It's just been absolute complete freezing hell, and they've never experienced that. I mean, they're literally getting hit with like Montana. Montana is literally happening down south in Texas, and it's unfortunate. It's a change of seasons, but I'm hoping everybody stays safe, and I hope that everybody, survives through this, because this is not easy to get through. I mean, it's below freezing temperatures. But talking about Houston, and this is the one thing that's a huge reality check, and what people don't realize, because now J.J. Watt's gone. J.J. Watt is a free agent, and right now his value in the free agent market is still good, and it's still high. And there have been a lot of talks. There have been a lot of different rumors that have been happening left and right. J.J. Watt was the heart and soul of this Texans organization. The second he came out of Wisconsin, I mean, he built a culture that was tough, that played hard. And then ever since they had no general manager, and they gave so much power to Bill O'Brien, the head coach, that eventually abused the power, it kind of taken it for granted, and at the same time traded away a lot of real good players, and including DeAndre Hopkins, and they never built upon an offensive line for Deshaun Watson. Now with him gone, Deshaun, he's just ready to be out, because at this point it's such a broken relationship there, and it's really just kind of one that's so unique. Like, none of us had ever seen something like this before. And Houston right now is just having this huge reality check. And it ain't just the Texans, but the only competitive team that Houston will have is going to be the Houston Astros. That's the only competitive team Houston still has. Because, listen, just because they lost George Springer to Toronto in a long-term deal, you still got Correa, you still got Altuve, you still have Michael Brantley, and you also have Alex Bregman, and you're getting Justin Verlander back, and you have Zach Greinke. The Astros are still going to continuously be competitive, and I know a lot of people despise them because of the fact of the cheating scandal, all this stuff. I get it. I understand that, and I have my own reservations too, but they're still going to be competitive. The problem of it is with the two other organizations, the Rockets and the Texans. And you know what I just found out? The Houston Rockets are ready to waive DeMarcus Cousins. This Rockets team is just now imploding. This is just one that's just become an absolute laughingstock. And the Houston Rockets were the type of team that they were building on James Harden. And it never seemed like it never, what's so interesting? It never seemed to please him. It never seemed to have lived up to the expectation. Which is so interesting, because Houston was willing to give everything to, they were willing to give everything to James Harden. But James Harden was not willing to work with it. He was not willing to put in his own portion of this whole plan. Was not. And what's interesting about this, because the Rockets, as I said again, they were a Chris Paul injury away from beating Golden State, making it to the Western Conference Final, possibly making it into the finals. They were so close, but then initially, James Harden just got pressurized and didn't execute. And that's what's the unfortunate thing. And then everything else goes downhill. And what starts this whole thing, you go and get Russell Westbrook, who, to be honest, doesn't shoot threes. And all he has to do, and he's hyper athletic, he charges for the basket every time. And you have to have an open lane. What did that force them to do? It forced them to trade away Clint Capella because they could not afford it. With Westbrook's contract in place, it just becomes expensive. So they got rid of one of their best backboard defenders. They go and settle for Robert Covington, which I don't understand that. And then it never worked out. Never worked out for Houston. That's where everybody left. Everybody just left. That was, Clint Capella. That was Daryl Morey. James Harden's gone. Russell Westbrook's gone. Everybody's gone. And then they're like, oh, we'll fix it. We'll bring in John Wall. What good is that going to do you? Oh, we'll bring in DeMarcus Cousins. DeMarcus Cousins hasn't even stayed healthy in the last couple of years. What good is that going to do you? This is where I knew that Houston was going to be in the implosion mode. The Rockets were going to end up imploding. And you're witnessing that, and you're seeing that right in front of your eyes. That's what's happening. And now we're here with the Texans. J.J. Watt was the heart and soul of this squad. And he's put up consistent numbers when it comes to sacks and when it comes to pressures. All of that. The only thing they didn't repay him was at least having a really good competitive team. You got Deshaun Watson. You had DeAndre Hopkins. You had a bunch of really good pieces, but you could not deliver. You couldn't get an offensive line. You couldn't get real good top-tier defenders. And you couldn't even establish a stable run game, which is so interesting to me. And JJ Watt just got tired of it. He didn't want to leave Houston because he loved the fans in Houston. They treated him like family. He even said it in his media post that that's what he wanted to do. But because of the fact that Houston didn't live up to the expectation and they did not provide, he had no choice. He was just like, I'm out. And Deshaun Watson now, like, they're all saying he's not available, he's not available, he's not available. But what's the worst? Because at this point, he's going to end up sitting out a season if you don't trade him. And ultimately, you should be trading and getting first-round picks. There are a bunch of teams that are willing to take Deshaun Watson. The Jets, the Panthers now, I'm hearing. And I'm going to discuss all of this, a little later on because there's also one other team. But Houston, this is just a complete laughingstock. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. And the fans of Houston deserve better than this. And this is the thing. The only team right now that you're really going to think, like you're really going to root on because they're competitive is the Houston Astros. That's it. And that's the one thing that I'm just like, the Rockets, the Texans, I don't know where in the middle of it, but somebody should have been in the room to stop them. Somebody had to be in the middle of the room. Whatever decision that they thought that they were making should have been there and should have intervened, but unfortunately just couldn't. But this is where they pay the price, and it's not going to be easy. It really will not be. This is just one of those things that it's just like, you got to go through it. Because initially you make the choices for yourself. This is much like life. You make the choices on how you shape your life. Of course, life comes with consequences every day. They come with rewards or they come with consequences. But if you live up and you accept them, you understand what the risks are, then that's where you get rewarded. But if you don't, that's where initially it bites you in the you-know-what. So that's exactly what's happening with the Rockets and what's happening with the Texans. You had opportunities, but right there, the decisions you made, it screwed it up. And the only team that really can stay competitive is the Astros. That's it. Coming up next, because we're talking about Deshaun Watson and we're talking about a lot of this quarterback carousel. There's one team in particular. I'm going to break this down because this is where it kind of leads to a connection, and this is where I kind of talk about it because I talk about it from the collegiate level to the NFL. And there's one team that has shown a lot of their interest and I think are willing to put in the chips if they're willing to put in the right price. That is going to be coming up next. And then also we're going to be talking at least a little bit more on the NBA. Are the Sixers legit in the East? Because right now, this is kind of something that, even a couple of my colleagues are very, very happy about. They're very interested in. I think it'll be interesting. And then we'll break that down once Jeremy comes back up into here as well. We'll be talking about that coming up next. So for all of you guys who love sports, you guys love also producing content and so much more, just don't have the equipment. Just don't exactly have something that can get you in the right direction of producing your own content. Well, don't worry, because actually there is an app for that. And there's a great app out there. It's called Media, Meedia. It's a small app, also a content producing company that is basically your personal PR at the palm of your hand, right here in your mobile device. And you can download it on the App Store and on Google Play. And you guys can produce content. You guys can end up producing them all on your social medias, Instagram, Facebook, so many countless places. Check it out on the App Store and on Google Play at Media. And when you do, there are tons of different backgrounds. There are tons of different customizations where you could be your own personal PR at the palm of your hand. Definitely check it out at Media on the App Store, and at Google Play.
But I know that's just in my mind. I know everything is just in my mind. Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want to be a superstar? Do you really want to get dangerous? Do you even know where the groupies are? Bitches out here be-
Welcome to Hammer's house.
Well, guys, if you love some interesting content here on the Spotlight Sports Network, which we produce almost on a weekly basis, we do have at least a couple of shows there for you. Gangrene David as well for all you die-hard New York Jet fans, because there is lots of content to go around, especially with free agency right up around the corner. Definitely check it out. And also Hammer's House. And by the way, for those that did not catch it, Jeff Hammond, a.k.a. Hammer, and I have actually ended up starting a podcast of our own strictly for baseball called Turn to Podcast. You guys do not want to end up missing that. We actually just launched the first episode a couple hours ago at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. You guys have missed it. Definitely go and watch it here on the archives at the Spotlight Sports Network, but definitely check out Hammer's House on the Spotlight Sports Network. And so, of course, is my trusty colleague and my co-host here on the Spotlight Sports Network, and of course here on the Snake Sports Talk Show, my good friend Jeremy Case. Jeremy, how are you doing? And also, just before we get into the heap things, we just want to say a big congratulations to our friend Jeremy Case. Pop the question, and now he's officially engaged, my man. This is exciting news.
I mean, yeah, it's always, I don't even know how to react to this, because this is honestly the first time I've ever done this. Like, it's kind of like, I guess, winning your first championship. You're like, it feels good. Like, I don't know what, it's kind of hard to describe kind of moments like that. Those are once in a lifetime moments, hopefully once in a lifetime moments.
Well, and it's kind of interesting when you kind of go through like the walks of life. I mean, initially, every single one of us, we go through our challenges, we go through our hardships, and we go through a lot of these things. The one thing that I kind of find interesting, and I actually just talked about this earlier, the Carson Wentz deal. I think Carson Wentz, like, he won this thing by a mile. And I ended up talking about this because of, the previous relationship I had a year ago, because I was in a position where it seemed like things were so good. Like, Philadelphia looked like they were a well-ran, legit organization. They looked like they knew what they were doing. And then down the stretch, in the last couple of years, they then become a mess, and it's toxic, and it's just like, it's not helping them. And Carson Wentz, in the middle of this thing, all he was looking for, just like we look for in relationships, we look for stability, we look for support, we look for communication. And that's where I think Carson Wentz got the better end of the stick, where he's got that with the Colts.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, though, because it's like, you see what the Colts have done recently after the departing of Andrew Luck. I mean, it really just hasn't. There really hasn't been. It kind of reminds me what's going on with the Broncos, or what has been going on with the Broncos since they won the Super Bowl 5 years ago. I mean, you kind of question what's going on also in Indianapolis. I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not so sure how much of Carson Wentz is the answer. I don't know. You got to believe that this is a temporarily, a temporary thing until they can draft somebody decent. Right. I mean, also for Philadelphia, what a way to just come out to your fans and admit that you're in a complete rebuild as well. I mean, that's pretty much just blown up. I kind of
seen this become a dumpster fire the second when I saw Nick Sirianni's first interview being with the team, and it was just like he completely butchered that thing. Like, it's so important to nail your interview, because especially when you're interviewing for a job, the last thing you want is to be hesitant, act like you have a plan when really in the back of your mind, you have no idea what the plan is. And it's just like, it's now become a mess. It's an absolute mess in Philadelphia. And this is where now Howie Roseman's on the hot seat. He has to nail this draft, because if you think about it, they took Jalen Reagor, over Justin Jefferson, who finished second in the Rookie of the Year. They take a bunch of these receivers, and they took the one receiver over Devontae Adams, and Devontae Adams is balling out. Like I don't even know what Philadelphia is doing, and that's the part that they butcher this whole thing.
Well, I don't necessarily know what Indianapolis is doing either. It's kind of hard to see where they're going. They don't have the greatest ownership group either. They really don't.
Well, I can say this, that I think Indianapolis, because ultimately they are going to look for another offensive lineman to fill in the role for Anthony Costanzo. I know that for sure. But as long as Quentin Nelson stays healthy and a lot of these other guys, they're stepping up, they're staying healthy, and they're protecting the pocket, that's what's going to be nice for Carson Wentz in the long run. And think about it. They literally got Carson Wentz for nothing. Like they just got a low-end pick. They gave away a next year's second-round pick, which I do think is going to turn into a first-round pick.
Well, Carson Wentz didn't really have any value to him anyway. He's just very injury-prone. He kept getting hurt. So, it's not like anybody was going to have to mortgage their entire future to get him in the first place. It's just it was more so just of a question of a gamble of, like, is Carson Wentz going to stay upright? Is he gonna be okay? Is he going to stay healthy? It's almost like I don't know. I don't even compare it to anything, but that was just the biggest thing. It's the biggest gamble. I'm kind of shocked he ended up in Indianapolis, but everybody must have had the right cards to play the game.
Well, you know what's so funny about this, because what Indianapolis was really competitive of, they were actually getting aggressive trying to get Derek Carr. And then that was initially where the Raiders just shut their door and said, Carr's not available. I'm happy at the fact they turned around and did that. Now they're realizing their value and their worth in Derek Carr, because it seems like he just gets blamed for literally everything that the Raiders just do wrong.
And that you get out in front of it before training camp starts, before any of that circus starts, any of that crap starts. It gives the team one last distraction, because if they're not going to say for sure that Derek Carr's their guy, they're going to have that entire circus following them all year, at least up until the trade deadline, before the media lets it go.
Right. And it's not like that they're that far away of a team, because they do have some offensive weapons. They do have some decent players. The problem, it always has been the defense. The defense just can't seem to get right. And until the Raiders actually figure that out and they come to realization that's your real problem, Derek Carr, the last 2 seasons, he's put up 4,000 yards. He's been completing 70% of his throws. Like, what more do you want out of him? And he's still at a young age. Like, it just doesn't make any sense.
I don't believe for 1 second Derek Carr's the problem.
Hell no. And this is where I look at this with the Colts, because what did the Colts offer? They have a top 10 defense. They have a top 5 offensive line. They have some weapons. I think they could go and get another wide receiver. They have a stable run game, because I think Jonathan Taylor is really going to ball out next season. My thing is, I know a lot of people have reservations on Carson Wentz, but I've been saying this in the very beginning. The Eagles got rid of him since 2017. They've moved off him. They built a statue in front of Lincoln Financial Field of Nick Foles in that Philly special. They then, you have this and Foles is better. Yeah. And you have this Foles is better than Wentz conversation, what I think is crap. And then you also have the fact that he gets benched for Jalen Hurts. And he's now the most expensive backup, and he's not willing to, end up helping him. And then initially Doug Peterson sits Hurts for Nate Sudfeld. So it's like, this is just a complete dumpster fire, in Philadelphia. And I'm very disappointed, because I thought this team was going to make something happen, and it couldn't work. And now the roster is way too old. The roster is just way too old. So that's why I think what I have to see with Indianapolis, because this is my thing. You're going to get 2 years of Carson Wentz. You're going to have the first year where I do feel like Indianapolis, when he's healthy and he's got a healthy offensive line that protects him, the team will go 12-4. And I think that because, to me, if you get one more wide receiver and these guys are capable of playing with them and he's happy in it, this team's gonna be really, really good. And I do potentially see the Colts maybe making an AFC championship run. I really think that.
Well, yeah, especially now with the Texans dumping off everything they have on their roster. I mean, that was really. I mean, there still is the potential of Jacksonville and Tennessee. I mean, Tennessee is still pretty strong. They're going to remain pretty strong. We're going to have to wait and see what Jacksonville ultimately does with that number 1 pick. But if they land Deshaun Watson or whatever may happen, but right. I mean, yeah, the Colts with this move, barring the fact that Carson Wentz stays healthy, they could make a decent run at the Titans for that AFC South. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I just think, like, at that point, the Colts now, they've got at least a slight upgrade for them, because that's what they needed the quarterback. And listen, let's agree to disagree. I think Carson Wentz is probably better mobile, and he's probably got a better accurate throwing arm than Phillip Rivers does. And this is somebody who's like on the tail end of his career, but he just doesn't have the same accuracy. So that's where I kind of see there's a slight upgrade in that.
Hold on, real quick. I'm breaking this. MLB Topps 2021 Series 1. Topps has got the 70th patch anniversary. First card I pull.
Oh,
Ken Griffey Jr. 70th patch.
Look how beautiful that is.
That's a pretty stellar card.
Man, that is beautiful. And I love that 70 years patch right there.
Yeah, you can get these in the Walmart retail little blaster boxes. They're $20 a piece. I feel like it's a great value, even if you don't get any card worth value in the entire box. I mean, this right here, I got this one. I got one of him, George Brett, and Joe Morgan.
Oh man, George Brett. That's a beautiful one right there too. And even Joe Morgan. Wow. That's awesome. I definitely, now at this point, you're getting me into these cards that, you're getting me back in this card game again.
I am it's nuts. It is so nuts. I'm just warning you, Jake, you probably might want to hold out for about a couple more months, because with all the card companies kind of being in Texas and on the East Coast and the weather affecting it, you're going to see about a 2-month dark period before some new cards really start showing up around anything really. But
I think initially this is kind of taking the time for even some, like, the older vintage, cards that, they still do have them coming around. So, well, I talked about this earlier, and this is kind of something that I definitely wanted to break down. So, of course, we're talking about this Deshaun Watson thing, because like I said before, if the Houston Texans don't trade him, then, Deshaun's going to sit out. Deshaun is absolutely going to sit out. That is what's going to be the plan. And that is something that the Texans, that's a consequence they have to face. That's something they have to face up on their own. Now, there are a bunch of teams that are in the middle of this mix. Obviously, it's, now the Carolina Panthers are showing some huge interest. Why? Because Deshaun Watson's from there. He went to school in Clemson. And this is a guy that I think would be a perfect fit. But here's the other part of it. They're going to get rid of Christian McCaffrey just to getting Deshaun Watson. I feel like that is just a huge risk, because now you're going to get rid of your run game, and you're going to get rid of a guy who knows how to run and he knows how to catch. And I love Christian McCaffrey. I mean, this is interesting. The other part of this, the Jets. This is why I think this is kind of a risk for the Jets, because initially people don't realize, but the Jets do have a lot of leverage. You got the number 2 pick. You got another first-round pick. You're getting all these first-round picks, thank you to Jamal Adams trade, and then all these other picks that you got down on the stretch. Now, if the Jets were to acquire him, because of course, too, he wanted to play with Robert Saleh. There's no doubt. And Robert Saleh, I think, is really going to establish and change the culture. What I like about this is a guy that, but at the same time, if you go and get him, the only hope is the Jets go and draft Devontae Smith. That's one thing. Now you're going to have 2 weapons. You're going to have Denzel Mims. You're going to have Devontae Smith. And then on top of it, they need to establish their run game. And there's a perfect fit for that, Travis Etienne. Because I know that there's also him and Najee Harris. But I feel like Etienne, and I've been saying this over and over again, he's another up-and-coming Alvin Kamara. He's strong on the lower half of the body. He's a guy that moves, he's mobile, and he's a guy that's willing to fight for yards. If you see his yards after the run and so much more, his yards per play, it's unbelievable. It's crazy. But here's one team that I wanted to talk about. And this is one that's also going to connect to college football. The Miami Dolphins, from what I'm hearing reports on, they are willing to put in their chips and they're willing to end up making the move, which they know is going to be a risk, and going again into Deshaun Watson. What is this telling you right now with the Miami Dolphins? They see how limited Tua is. This is where I think I'm going to end up going back with these Alabama players. Okay. If there is one thing that Alabama has been known for after, of all these years, it ain't just the recruitment. The recruitment's always 5 stars. We know that. But the one thing that Alabama's been good for, they've always been good for producing wide receivers. We see this with Calvin Ridley. We see this with Julio Jones. We see this with Jerry Jeudy and with a bunch of wide receivers. And then we see this with Devontae Smith going into this year's draft. They've also been very excellent at running backs. They had Mark Ingram. They have Najee Harris. They have Derrick Henry. They have a lot of these running backs. And the only ones that were probably the exceptions are, Trent Richardson. That's it. And even TJ Yeldon. Then they were also really good at defensive secondaries and, of course, frontline guys. I mean, you see Damian Square, very successful with the Chargers. Now you got Patrick Surtain, and you got a lot of these really good secondary guys, and they know how to play. I think the only exception is the linebacking position for them because there are some linebackers that kind of come and go. And then the offensive line is also really good. We see a lot of these offensive linemen, and these guys, they're just like, they go into this offensive line system in any of these organizations, and they're literally like, they make the quarterback so untouchable. But the only positions that I feel like Alabama had tendencies over the years to butcher is the quarterback, bits and pieces of the tight end, and linebackers. Those are the only 3 positions that Nick Saban, since he's been in Alabama, have been those ones that when they transition from collegiate to the NFL, you don't even hear from them again. When Mark Ingram was successful in college, his quarterback, Greg McElroy, we never heard anything after that. We never heard anything from Greg McElroy since the transition. Then years move past, and you have A.J. McCarron, the other quarterback, which I thought was a big-time competitor. Now, there were talks about McCarron adjusting his game, looked better, but then here's the other problem. Suffered an injury. Can't stay healthy. Then he's butchered. Then you have, I think the only player you really can put an exception on is Jalen Hurts. Because Jalen Hurts plays in Alabama in his, the first in his career in collegiate, plays so good, then initially gets benched for Tua in the championship game. And then goes into the transfer portal. And what's the exception of it is because he goes to Oklahoma in Lincoln Riley, where he reestablishes his game. And now he's probably one of the up-and-coming players in the NFL with the Eagles. And who knows how that's going to turn out. But when you look at Tua, and I know a lot of people have had their reservations on it because of the fact of, one, he suffered a hip injury and all this other stuff. What Miami is telling you right now, they sense the limitation with Tua. And Tua's a good kid. Tua is disciplined. He's coachable. He's a guy that doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't. If you look at it from some of the games, doesn't make a ton of mistakes. But what Miami has done, because a lot of people started falling in love with this tank for Tua thing, and then just like it panned out. But then go and look at the other quarterbacks in the middle of this class. Joe Burrow, I think Joe Burrow is capable of playing in the NFL, and he's successful. It's unfortunate because of the fact that he suffered an ACL tear, and now he's got to have this thing repaired, and you're hoping Cincinnati has a healthier and better offensive line for him because that's your franchise quarterback. How about the kid from Oregon, Justin Herbert? I mean, he's broken every single rookie record at quarterback that you could think of possible. And he's thrown for a bunch of 300 passing yard games. He's thrown for 30-plus touchdowns. And The kid's unbelievable. And this is what happens when you put trust in his hands. He's going to deliver. Then you've got Jalen Hurts, who has he has a potentiality for the Eagles because of the fact that he comes into the, in a situation where they're just kind of done with Carson Wentz. He serves in as the energy, the juice to get this team back up. Like, that's it. And it seemed like it worked until Doug Peterson pulled that antic and put in Nate Sudfeld. Here's the thing with Tua. I think he's a really good kid, and I do think he's coachable. But this is what Miami tells you of why he's limited. First and foremost, he hasn't thrown for over 300 yards in a game. Most of them were all below it. I think the highest was probably about 250, 260. That's it. The other part of it is he kind of gets pressurized at certain situations. Did you see some of the games? Did you see some of the snaps? And then in the middle of it, he got benched 3 times. Teams wouldn't do that to a quarterback protege unless you add some sort of reservation in the back of your head that you don't trust him. Or maybe he's not quite ready for this level. They've done it 3 times. And Ryan Fitzpatrick came in so many opportunities, and now I think he's going to end up getting a different gig in the NFL. But this is why that I think when they said they were willing to put in their chips to getting Deshaun Watson. And what's Deshaun going to get out of this? Well, one, he's going to get a stable coach in Brian Flores who knows how to coach. And at the end of it, you're going to get a really good defense. You're also going to end up getting some good offensive weapons. They are in the same boat, like the Jets. They need to get another wide receiver. Devontae Parker is a really good kid, but I also do think they need to get a second receiver to keep him on the field. The other thing is, you got Mike Gesicki, who I think is a top 10 tight end. I think he's a guy that's willing to make the plays. And on top of it, you could also get somewhat of a run game. And the offensive line may need at least a little bit of work, but it's not that far away. Miami just feels to me that if Deshaun goes there, I mean, Buffalo's going to have a lot of competition. The Jets, forget about it. And then you've got New England with Belichick and how he really shapes up for the Patriots. I mean, this is not something I brush away. But if Miami's telling you right now they are in for Deshaun Watson, that just only tells you they have their limits set on Tua. It's nothing against Tua. But then also look at the other Alabama quarterback that's going in this draft, Mac Jones. I don't know about this kid. I really don't. If there is something there for Mac Jones, then it'll prove me wrong. I think that if he goes to a stable organization and they work through it well, and he's a successful quarterback, that put the words in my mouth, that's it. But from what I can tell over the years with Alabama and with Nick Saban, I think Nick Saban, when he looks at the quarterback position, he's just looking for a guy that just does the job. Doesn't have to be special. He doesn't even have to be dynamic. Just play your position, do your job, and execute plays. The rest of it, the wide receivers, the running backs, the defenses, excluding the linebackers, like, that's all Alabama's, success. I haven't seen a current starting quarterback in this league from Alabama that has shown a lot of success in the NFL. And that's the thing. And then you look at some of the tight ends, because a lot of people would like to think, oh, OJ Howard. But here's the thing, OJ Howard got hurt. And I think he has another opportunity to do good for the Buccaneers next season. But then there's also, the linebackers, where there was a couple of them that have gone and whiffed. But out of all those positions I mentioned, that's what Alabama is successful for. But Miami's just telling you, they're not sure about Tua. They're not. But wherever Deshaun goes, he's obviously going to be successful somewhere. And he's going to be happy there, because he sure as hell is not happy in Houston. That's it. But this is just kind of it all starts with this whole thing with, Josh Rosen and, a bunch of these young quarterbacks. This is just kind of the new era that we face in the NFL. But if that's the case, I just think it just kind of tells you right now about what they feel for Tua. Because I'm telling you, Jeremy, I just like, if you're Miami right now and you're basically telling me that you are willing to put your chips in to get Deshaun Watson, that's just telling me you don't know how you feel about Tua. And this tank for Tua thing, like people rant and raved about it last year. I don't get it. And it's just like every single Alabama quarterback, and nothing against Mac Jones, but it just feels like every Alabama quarterback that's transitioned from collegiate to NFL just has not been successful. And I don't even think they were meant to be. Like that's just my opinion.
Well, my theory about it all is I think the reason why the translation is not there simply for Alabama players in general, besides, offensive linemen, defensive backs, is just simply due to the fact, Derrick Henry's kind of a unicorn in that aspect, but it's just because these guys just don't know how to lose. They've never had their asses handed to them in college ever.
Yeah.
Like everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the mouth. And Alabama players, for the most part, when they come up to the NFL, they've never experienced that.
Yeah.
They've never had to be on a team where, a lot of the players are par at best,
right.
They get drafted to these subpar teams with not really good, rosters to them. And I just think they just don't know how to deal with it.
But you know what I find interesting though, and correct me if I'm wrong, but again, I've been used to, like, when it comes to Alabama products, the only positions that I know that have been successful, and we've been seeing this over the years, wide receivers, like I watched Calvin Ridley in Julio Jones in Atlanta, and these guys just ball. These guys play good. Then you've got Jerry Jeudy, which a lot of people are just kind of like, he's had his moments to drop balls. But if he's got a quarterback that's accurate and at the same time doesn't make a ton of mistakes, Jerry Jeudy, you're going to get the best out of him.
And that's kind of my point. Good personnel, right?
Yes.
Calvin Ridley has Matt Ryan in Atlanta. He's got some good personnel around him, good offensive line, good solid players. Jerry Jeudy has an okay to solid quarterback with Drew Lock. He's got obviously with Vic Fangio, a really, really good offensive coordinator as well. It's all about the personnel on the team. You can have as much talent as you want to, but nobody can be the Michael Jordan of football, so to speak. Nobody can be that one player that comes in and, it's still, even with one player, you see it as good as Tom Brady is, he still had to recruit all those guys to have a really stellar defense to give him some touchdowns and point support.
Right.
He doesn't. I'm not so sure Tom Brady wins a Super Bowl without that defense.
Right. And ultimately, and now, because I'm sure this probably made you feel in some type of way, but now the reports are out in Denver. They're done with Drew Lock. They want to move off of him. And now, of course, they're officially in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. Like, this is kind of, I've seen this coming because of the fact of this is trying to save John Elway's job. Now, I know he's not a general manager no more, but from one quarterback to another, you'd think that you'd get this right. And it doesn't seem like it. Like, Drew Lock is obviously not the answer. And I think people are coming to realization with it. But, and then, of course, when you look at these other you look at what Denver's doing. They have good players. They've got good players, but it just feels like it was just one piece that's not solidified, and it's kind of showing for it already. And that's where they're just kind of like, look, we need something better. This is not working.
But then it becomes a question too, Jake. Is it that they're done with him, or is it just that the fan bases have no patience?
I think they're kind of done with him, because ultimately, listen, when you have, because he did play literally he's already played like 16 games, if not 18 of them in his career. And every single one of them, he's had a low completion percentage. He's had a low completion percentage. His quarterback rating is not even up in the high 90s. And it's kind of just leaves you to believe, like, did you kind of like, does it feel like Drew Lock was initially a reach? Like, that's just kind of what I feel like. That it felt like he plays and he looks like he's a reach. And like Denver could have got a different quarterback at the end of it, but they settled on it.
I mean, you could certainly make the argument that because he was a first round pick, that he's got those expectations put on him.
That's right.
As most all first round picks do. But what I was more saying, like, is it today's society with the fans' patience that pressure the organizations more to make the moves off of these people?
It could have,
or is it really just that they don't have the talent that they don't have? I'm not entirely sure, because we live in such a microwave society now.
Yeah,
you don't draft a quarterback, then bench him and put him in a clipboard and a headset for 2 years and let him watch. That's just not the NFL anymore.
Right. And it's moving by so fast.
And that's what I'm saying. And I wonder if that's just because of I don't mean to get political or anything, but like, because of the development of technology, the way we have things so fast in society now, is that what that's produced, or is it really just the talent evaluation and scouting has got that much more better? I don't know.
I think it leads to that connection. I think it absolutely has led to that connection, because think about it. I mean, when you look at scouting departments nowadays and you look at some of the, like, these recruiters, like, they're looking at every sign of detail. They're looking at literally everything from play by play, snap for snap. And they're just kind of looking for all of those in between, like, silver lining details. And I'm just the type of person that, like, when I evaluate, I don't go like over the top. I just look more of like, listen, stats are going to speak for themselves. That's it. But if I look at a situation, because every single one of us has had an experience playing sports at some point. If you have an experience of it and you know the feeling, you see the feeling before your eyes. When you watch a game, how you control the pressure, how you control the situation is initially where a lot of those criticisms are going to come from. So if Drew Lock is not controlling the game and he's not, like, leading the Broncos to getting first downs and drives, because a lot of people want to convince me of, well, he's good at fourth quarters, but what happened in the first three? Like, if you're going to give me 3 decent quarters, if you're going to give me really good quarters, then I'll just be like, oh, he's capable of playing this league. But if I just get 1 quarter, that's not enough for me. I got to have 3, if not all 4 solid quarters.
Because he's not that type of a quarterback. He's not. He's not a Brady. He's not a Mahomes. He's not that type where if the Chiefs or the Buccaneers or when Brady was on the Patriots, they were down in the third, fourth quarter. You're like, all right, well, there's still.
But what's so funny?
Climb back in.
And what's so funny? Because we like to knock and laugh at the Detroit Lions, right? Well, I just found out this stat with Matthew Stafford. And people wanted to talk about Drew Lock with the fourth quarters. Matthew Stafford, what's so valuable on him is he's had 36 career comeback drives. And this is a Lions team we're talking about here. Like, you and I would not believe a stat like that to be true. But that's just kind of tells you you're taking Detroit out of the picture and you're just talking about Matthew Stafford. And that's kind of the yeah.
I mean, besides the handful of years he had Calvin Johnson, I mean, what else did he really have to work with?
Exactly. But was still willing to put in, the potentialities, and not to mention, the situations at hand, and that's just kind of where you look at it. But again, as a reason, like, put yourself in the general manager position for Denver. Or would you be willing? And I know a lot of people are, I know a lot of people kind of, come at it very, very fast. The critiques come in very quick. But if you got performances like this, would you be willing to extend 5 more years of that? And hoping that at some point you're going to get at least 2 or 3 really good seasons out of him? Or would you move off of him? Just save yourself the sake, because at the same time, because it's like, because ultimately the press headline is going to be, if he's still there, Denver just wasn't prepared since 2015. They were just not prepared after Peyton Manning retired. And that
blew it up sooner.
Yeah. And that's where it's like, they should have blown it up sooner. And now they're kind of constantly going ear, and it's not solving their problems. And now it's initially causing injuries for a lot of these key players, including Von Miller. So it's like, if you want this thing to be successful, I feel like you take a risk, and then who knows what the reward will be. I mean, think about it. If they went and got Deshaun Watson tomorrow, like, initially you got pieces around him. And yes, there are going to be some sacrifices as far as players, draft picks, etc. But at least you actually have a quarterback that's willing to compete with Patrick Mahomes. He's willing to compete with Justin Herbert, and he's willing to compete with Derek Carr. Because right now, Drew Lock is ultimately the fourth best quarterback in the division, and he's probably one of the low ends in the whole league, if not the entire AFC. Like that's just kind of something I outlook with it.
Well, I mean, that's the question you have to ask if you're the Broncos. Like, if you mortgage that much of your future, because the Texans are probably going to want somebody like a Courtland Sutton. They're probably going to want, another young receiver, maybe KJ Hamler, maybe Jerry Jeudy, who knows? Is that going to be enough to mortgage? And then you're going to have at least 3 or 4 first rounders. So you're going to be out that pick, for the next 3 to 4 years. Is that going to be worth it? Because I wonder on the flip side of that too, is Deshaun Watson one of those guys that can attract guys to a team? Can he do this thing that Brady is doing, where he goes to another team and a whole bunch of other guys come in and say, yeah, I want in on that? That's kind of the unknown on the other side of that, because if you mortgage your future like that and you leave him with no weapons, then what good was it to do that?
Yeah, and I think initially when that point comes across, I think that point will come across when he lands with a team. I think that's initially where that question starts to begin, when he lands with the team. And think of it this way. And I mean, let's just kind of hypothetically think about this. But if he was to be a Denver Bronco tomorrow, my thing of it is, even if they got rid of KJ Hamler and a young wide receiver, there are wide receivers apparently seem to be so valuable in this league now. They're so valuable the second they come out of college. I could get a wide receiver in the first, second, or even the third round, potentially the fourth round if I wanted to, and still have the assets to initially constantly reload this thing. The only way that I look at this as far as the value, because the quarterback is initially your one of the totem pieces in your franchise, because initially the owner, the general manager, the coach, the quarterback, and then of course you have your offensive line. That's initially what it comes down to. Offensive weaponry and all this other stuff, those players are going to come and go. It's recyclable. It's recyclable about every 2 to 4 years. That's usually how I look at it. So you're going to get some assets in the middle of it. But as long as your offensive line is stable, as long as your quarterback's continuing to produce, because you need a quarterback who's willing to give you drives, that's going to get you downfield, get you touchdowns, and get teams leads. And then in the end of it, if he's got a stable defense where he's got a pass rush, he's got a scanner in the linebacking position, and he's also got really good secondaries, what do you got really left to lose? What do you really have left to kind of feel risky for?
I think most of the more important question here is is it going to be enough to beat the Chiefs twice a year? Can you beat Patrick Mahomes? He's in your division. You got to face him twice a year. If you're gonna make a move like that, you better make sure that it's damn good enough to beat the Chiefs twice a year.
And I honestly do think that, when you look at where the Chiefs were and how exposed that they were in this Super Bowl, because right now you kind of see this as, because initially that Mahomes contract is going to start. That Mahomes contract is initially going to be the start of it. And I think at the end of the day, I feel like the defense is going to implode. Because the second that happens, I mean, you only have Chris Jones, you got Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill on contracts, but then you're paying Patrick Mahomes this fat contract and everything else. And now what money are you going to have left to spend on your defense? because Bashaud Breeland clearly is overrated. And a lot of these other players, they were so miscued and they were just like, they were completely dissected. Like Tom Brady just saw the absolute worst unravel. And that was part of his method of his madness. And I think that's initially where Kansas City, they have to button that up, because now the Chargers, they got a defensive coach. The Chargers have a defensive coach. The Broncos have a defensive coach. Like, defensive coaches, I feel like, watched this thing and said, this is how you beat Mahomes. So this is how you do. That's where they are really going to start to get serious and button up on the defensive side of the football. I feel like that's what's going to happen.
I can kind of see Mahomes, excuse me, I can kind of see Mahomes being how Brady was, to just restructure his deal in order to take a home discount to bring more talent in. I don't know if that's how he's going to be, but he strikes me as that type of a dude. I think he's not stupid. I think he understands the potential and the talent of what lies ahead for this Kansas City Chiefs team. I mean, if he could do that, if he could certainly restructure his deal, then and take the home discount, I mean, then they'll be there for years to come. But yeah, you do have a point there, Jake. You know, you're gonna have to pay players at some point. You know, and guys like Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill, they're gonna want to be paid.
Yeah, and you think about how stable that they are. I mean, a lot of them understand their roles and they know it. And then there are some players that they feel like, you know what, I played good enough, I should get paid enough. You know, you're gonna come across that roadblock. But again, always by the general manager's decisioning and how he really just overviews this thing, I think initially is what determines it. Because if you are like, again, the Colts, we know they were going through so much chaos with as far as their offensive line goes. Now they've got one of the top 5 offensive lines that any quarterback that plays under center with this team is going to love. They got all the protection, they got all the support, and they got a defense on top of it with Darius Leonard and with a lot of guys. And I feel like because of the fact that them getting Carson Wentz literally for nothing, they saved so much. Philadelphia could have put in and said, hey, can you guys retain 50% of that salary? Because initially, that's now where Philadelphia is going to get hit with that dead money. Because of the fact that they got so bamboozled off that whole deal. And literally, Chris Ballard's just kind of going there like, well, I did my job and we didn't lose nothing out of it. So we still get some of our assets that we need, and we're going to continuously reload on it. But at least the ultimate thing is Carson Wentz is reunited with Frank Reich. So I feel like Frank Reich will be the successor for him to kind of redeem himself in his career. And I feel like that could be a slap in Philadelphia's face at the end of the day.
Yeah, it very well could be.
Yeah. So, all right. Jeremy with the news. So we've got a lot of things cooking here on the hot press tonight. And of course, you know, one of the biggest deals that we know that was unfortunate, and this has just been broken down, but Tiger Woods, the star golfer, suffered a compound leg fracture, shattered ankle in a rollover crash that happened just hours today. And it was, in fact, reported by the LA County Sheriff's Department about the entire detail. They said that the injury is serious but not life-threatening. So that's a good thing. It is going to really take a lot of rehab for Tiger Woods to really kind of work back into to getting back onto the golf course again, because I know that there are a couple of tournaments that are going to be coming up in the coming months. Because from what sources were being told, that Woods has crush injuries from both the lower legs. That's including that compound fracture and the shattered ankle. And a crush injury occurs when a heavy object puts pressure on a body part. And so he was undergoing surgery at the Harbor UCLA Medical Center. So good news that at least it's not life-threatening. because I think between you and I, when we see some of these superstars, because my God, I'm not going to say that this was, because initially with what happened with Kobe and Gigi, that was such a terrible situation. But at the end of it, it's another superstar. But at the very least, he's going to end up getting some medical help. So that's a good thing there for Tiger Woods.
I mean, yeah, it's certainly a scary situation. I kind of question, before, because that one time he had a car accident, I believe he was under the influence of some substances at that point. I wonder if maybe this is a relapse, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure, nor am I going to speculate on it, but I mean, it certainly is a really scary thing. You're talking about rollover crash. The survival rate of those is not really good.
Yeah.
It's really not. Once you start to roll over a car, the death rate becomes a lot higher. And and I was worried about Tiger Woods honestly all day, because I was like, man, any bit of paralysis at all, and his career is over.
Yeah.
In the arms or legs, like it doesn't matter if it was just one arm or one leg. It was like his career's over at that point. You need both legs, you need both arms, and you need a really good back. And it just seems to be quite a few unfortunate years for Tiger Woods. First he had the back problems and he had the surgery, thought it was fixed. Yeah. And now he has this happen to him. I mean, it's just very unfortunate, but hopefully he can somehow, and like you said, with his prior back history and everything like that, it is going to take a long time for him to get back to the course. It doesn't matter if he's just banged up or there's something more severe happening there.
Yeah, and that's just kind of something, because right now, I mean, it's just how I kind of viewed it with golf. We've never really had like over the top superstars in golf. I did watch Vijay Singh, Ron Daly,
Bubba Watson.
Bubba Watson, and even Payne Stewart. I watched a lot of those guys play, but none of them came close to really kind of the energy, the intensity, and then not to mention just those pressurized situations, in the middle of a hole where Tiger just does some of the most unbelievable stuff that you and I cannot even compare. And that was where I think initially that's where golf really got so much of the revenue, was as long as Tiger was on the television. If you're watching him, if you're watching it on a gorgeous day in Augusta, Georgia, in the Masters, or you're watching it in the Open, you were going to get a lot of television revenue. That was literally where he just made a lot of his money's worth. And it is unfortunate because the fact of, what that initially took in a downward spiral, where all this just kind of happened in his reputation and in his career. But you can't really bash on that. That's just one that every person, every athlete would dream to do. That's just kind of the thing that yes, it kind of bugs a lot of people, but it's something that you kind of have to generally respect. It's crazy how that just kind of works around. But so the Houston Rockets, after a 25 game span, have announced that they are waiving center DeMarcus Cousins after all of that. And DeMarcus Cousins, the move came after a mutual decision was made between the team and the big man to part ways, whose veterans minimum is at least $2.3 million, was guaranteed by the Rockets last week as a token of gratitude, and will explore interest from other teams. So the 30-year-old, of course, is going to be looking for another team that he's going to end up, I just think kind of associating with. I just don't think he's really kind of taking part in a lot of these, these teams' plans. I mean, we saw this with Golden State. We saw this with New Orleans. I don't really think there's really any place that are just going to utilize DeMarcus Cousins' services. I mean, he's too injury prone. He's way too injury prone. I just don't think there's really a whole lot of game time span in him left. I don't really see that happening. And worst of all, with the Houston Rockets, this is what made me chuckle, because of the fact of Houston's obviously imploding, and they think that John Wall's going to really just solve your problems. No, it doesn't. That's just going to put another injury-prone player in the middle of this mix. So now it's like you're trapped. You're trapped at this point if you're Houston, and now you don't even know how to recover at this point.
I mean, it's almost to the point where you start to feel sorry for the Houston Rockets, right?
Oh,
I mean, what?
Well, here's my thing.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Here's my thing is like, I don't feel sorry for the organization because ultimately they're the ones who make the decisions. I mean, think about it this way. Look at how in government and in politics, they make those decisions. Like ultimately there are consequences and then there are rewards to every single decision. Am I right? So when you look at the politics and of course the decisions that they make and the bills they try to pass, of course there are going to be supports and there's going to be pushbacks. But I think if you look at the Houston Rockets with this is just even, this also relates to the Houston Texans as a whole, because even the Texans made those decisions because they have no general manager. They gave too much power to Bill O'Brien to where he just did all of his madness and everything unraveled. And now Deshaun Watson doesn't even want to play a single down. The Houston Rockets were Chris Paul injury away from making it into the NBA Finals. And then what do? They go and get Russell Westbrook. And then they had to trade away Clint Capella because initially the contract got so expensive. And then that didn't work. So then Westbrook's now in D.C. Harden's up in Brooklyn. So it's like all of this whole thing unraveled because of one decision. Do I feel like I don't feel bad for the front office? I just feel bad for the fans because the fans deserve better. And the fans were so excited when they felt like they were so close to a championship, they could feel it. And now you're probably going to end up getting 20 years of disappointment at this point. And my bad, but how as an organization are you going to recover from that? How are you even going to explain that to the fans? I just feel like there's nothing going to be in place.
I have no idea, but like back to what I was going to say, like I don't feel like I feel sorry for him in this way. The fact that they basically entrusted James Harden with everything. They basically came to him and said, "Okay, what do you want? What do you want? Okay, well, I like you said, you wanted all those players, and they just didn't work. And then they gave him everything they wanted, which is basically creative control over the roster. And then he just sayonara's out. He's done, and he just decides he's done, and he wants to go to Brooklyn. I mean, that's working out for him decently right now, but I mean, I feel sorry for kind of the management in that aspect because they were willing to do whatever he wanted to because they realized he was a cornerstone of that franchise, and then he just basically screwed them.
Right, and that's the thing because ultimately, I mean, look at it this way, because he put on the weight, and at the same time, he wasn't even willing to put in the work, even though no matter. You could be a great shooter. Yeah, you could be a great shooter in this league and still not even be considered a leader. You could be that way in this league. And I think initially that's what really kind of showed the unmasked truth in itself. Because initially James Harden, he wants to win a championship, but it just feels like he doesn't want to put in the works. He
doesn't want to lead. He doesn't want to lead at all to try that. He wants it to be on somebody else's back for some reason. And I don't understand that because in every other aspect, he wants the spotlight to be all on him. And instead of but when it comes down to being a leader on both sides of the coin, he just doesn't want nothing to do with it. And I've never understood that.
Neither have I. And this is where I've honestly made my reservations and I've criticized, James Harden for this, because think about what LeBron does day in and day out. I mean, LeBron is willing to make things work. Kevin Durant, and here's the thing, Kevin Durant to me is a leader. He's a guy that is willing. You could put the ball in his hands at the last seconds, and he'll make the shot. He
holds players accountable, holds his whole team accountable. Yeah, LeBron does. LeBron's basically the damn coach of the LA Lakers. Yeah,
exactly. And that's the one thing that, like, when I look at this situation with Brooklyn, and of course everybody wants to say something about, Kevin Durant, but in the end, he's trying to prove to himself that he could actually turn this team around. Now, will it consist of Kyrie, needing to get on the same page? Yes and no, because you and I kind of already see where Kyrie's head is at. But if you got James Harden, who you know is going to put up the points, he's going to put up the shots, you don't even really have to rely on him for a whole lot of things. But you just gotta be able to put up the points. You got to put up you got to be able to put up the minutes. But here's also what's the downfall. Brooklyn, they may be the most offensive-centric team, but they are not defensive. They are horrible on defense.
No, they're terrible.
My God, that's the part that that's the balance between that. And the NFL is probably one of the best examples of that. And even college football, you could have all this great offense. You could be spectacular and put up 30 points. But if your defense is giving up the same amount of points, if not more, then what is this whole super offense all about? Is it just because you're trying to build a headline, or is it because you're building this whole thing and now you're like, I felt like this was going to work and now I have no idea. Like, I just feel like this is just one of those things that it doesn't add up. But ultimately, and ultimately when I look at this DeMarcus Cousins thing, he's just suffered too many injuries that, listen, we really are just at this point, we don't care where he goes, but ultimately he's just going to be a face. That's just what I look at in the NBA.
He's definitely a role player would be putting it nice.
Yeah. So here's what's interesting here in the NFL. So Dez Bryant came out with something that I thought was so interesting. And there's no knocks. There's no bad blood. There's no, bad terms. But Dez Bryant says that he plans to play 2 more years. But it won't be with the Ravens after his 6-year stint with them. So he made that clear on a post, and he says, I realized quick Baltimore wasn't the place for me. No bad blood. That's their way of doing things, so you got to respect it. So Dez right now at 32 years old, I know that this was kind of just a challenging journey for him moving forward, because of the fact that he suffered injuries. And at the same time, I look at him I just don't see him as a number 1 wide receiver. I never have. I felt like his route running skills and how he really carries himself looks like a slot receiver. And you could still be productive in those aspects, but I just feel like Baltimore, and I had an upload about this, but Dez Bryant was not what Baltimore needed, to be honest. He was not what they needed, because I feel like what they need a taller, lanky wide receiver who can make those over-the-top catches.
Just go up and get it.
Right, exactly. And that could also be played as a deceiver for Marquise Brown now to get open, and he's going to get more opportunities. He's going to end up getting more reps and targets. So I just feel like Dez Bryant, if he says he's going to have 2 more years of playing into this league, so be it. I mean, there are some wide receivers that still can play, but I think initially he's just going to be up in a limited role, but it just depends on, the teams that are really going to utilize his services.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, and didn't he have COVID?
Yeah, he did.
Did he get pulled off in warm-ups? It was like, yeah, you got COVID. You need to go.
Did. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I mean, not only that, Dez Bryant has always I forget what documentary I was watching was with the Cowboys. He just seems to be his own worst enemy. He can't get out of his own way. His ego is way too damn big for the amount of talent that he has, and it's not really a good thing to have in the locker room. Yes, obviously, if you're going to make it in professional sports, you have to have some level of confidence, obviously.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, you're not out there. But at the same time, there's a difference between being confident and just annoying. And it seems to me, with all the interactions I've seen with Dez Bryant and teammates over the year, they don't really fancy him as a good locker room guy.
And you know what's kind of funny about this? Because I remember watching a lot of highlighted tapes and so much more from when he was in college at Oklahoma State. And I've watched him. And you know what's kind of funny too? I even watched Justin Blackmon. You remember him? Like when he was playing in Jacksonville. And I'd seen some of like these antics and all this. I just feel like, was this kind of something that was established in Oklahoma State for whatever reason? Because it just kind of seems like that's where the ego was planted. And now it's just kind of carried off where you don't even see Justin Blackmon no more. And I think he's kind of serving up a sentence or something like that. And then you got Des Bryant, who just like you said, he's his own worst enemy. And so it's like, I don't know at this point. I really, really don't know. I thought this thing with New Orleans was going to be a thing. But, initially once he got suffered with the injury, it was just like, okay, this ain't going to work. Because if he's going to continuously be injury prone, then he's going to be down to a limited role. So that's just kind of one that I look at Des Bryant. Whoever may utilize his services, I'm sure they're going to get some sort of value in him. But I think ultimately it's his decision and his choice he has to go through, whether or not he's going to actually accept that limited role and if that's going to help to pan out to build these teams and really potentially win championships somehow. But that's just kind of how I feel with him.
Absolutely.
So, lastly, so apparently there's a lot of talks right now with as far as Alex Smith goes, but apparently, Alex Smith, from what we've seen and this is a guy who won the Comeback Player of the Year award this past year.
Rightfully
and I thought
so.
Very rightfully so. What a amazing story and an amazing comeback as well. God, that was a story that when I watched the documentary and on top of watching the season was what left me in chills, because I just was like, that's so unheard of, and nobody to this day, not even Joe Theismann, could even say he was able to get that kind of treatment and come back in the NFL and still play another down. So apparently Alex Smith says his return put wrench into Washington football team's plans at quarterback. And by the way, Washington is still going to be considered the Washington football team for this next season until 2022. So the name change is going to end up holding for at least another year until they are ready to have the colors, the name and all that other stuff. So they're going to hold that. But apparently Alex Smith said his comeback threw a wrench into the team's plans and that he didn't feel wanted by the organization this past summer. So he was surprised that the organization, by being able to play, and this is what he ended up saying, quote unquote, they didn't see it, didn't want me there, didn't want me to be a part of it, didn't want me to be on the team, the roster, didn't want to give me a chance. Mind you, it was a whole new regime. They came in. I'm like the leftovers, and I'm hurt, and I'm this liability. This is kind of strong. This is literally something that you and I could talk about now for like the next couple of days, because I don't think anybody really predicted the outcome. Like, oh, Alex Smith's come back. Nobody would have. But I think this kind of leaves a stain on the Comeback Player of the Year award, not just to his career, but I think to the fact of the opportunity he was given. So I think obviously somebody's going to want to take Alex Smith, rightfully so. And it ain't just because of the story, but I think that also too, he still does hold a value. I mean, he could throw a football. He's accurate. He can make plays, but I think this just was kind of hurtful. The fact that
he's not playing scared, surprisingly. I thought he would be playing scared, and he not an ounce of fear in him, and I'm shocked about it.
Yeah, no, he played with no sense of fear whatsoever.
I mean, he almost died.
Yeah, he almost died. Almost had that leg amputated and almost died. And that's one that, like, I think it does. I think part of it, yeah, it can feel prideful and at the same time feel courageous. But at the same time, those are life and death situations. And some people just have this reaction, and it just, I don't know how they do it. But it's like when they do that, that's just like unheard of. Like you and I just like, we're both, our jaws are dropped. Like, how the hell do you even do that? But I just do think too that for Washington, with the fact that this comes back and comes out, I think that I just really feel a lot for Alex Smith. The work he's put in to getting back onto the field, but now to be just kind of at the point where they didn't even want me there. They didn't even want me a part of the team's plans and all this other stuff. And it's just like, wow.
I'm not surprised, Jake. Washington has been a pretty scum organization for quite some time.
Yeah.
I don't think this is any known secret across the National Football League. I've heard a lot of former players from their organization not talk very highly of them. I'm more interested, though, to know exactly where that's coming from within the organization, because I never got that once from Juan Rivera, like that he didn't want Alex Smith on his team. I think he was the one, pounding the table to put this man back in and give him a second chance. But at the end of the day, it makes me more sad than anything else. Like, it doesn't piss me off. It just makes me sad, because it's like, I don't understand how there can be people like this that exist and just not see the good in people. I mean, yes, is it concerning to play Alex Smith? Absolutely. I mean, the guy had half of his legs shaven off and almost died. Like, obviously that's a risk within itself, but at the same time, man, I don't get this whole mentality of a quarterback's nearly broken, so we throw him away like trash. Every single time that's happened, for the most part, they come right back. The Colts did it with Peyton Manning. Yep. And I don't know. I don't understand ever why they ever doubted him for a second. It made I understand people's concerns when you have injuries like those. Like, you get 6 neck surgeries, you get half your legs shaven off. Like, those are concerning injuries to a prominent position in the sport. But to treat them like they're garbage is just another. It's just subhuman to me.
Well, I think to me, like with the Indianapolis situation, because I will say this, I think, because we know how, I think we kind of understand how competent, the owner Jim Irsay is in Indianapolis. I think we kind of see how competent he is. But I think, to me, the difference with Washington and Indianapolis and how they moved about the quarterbacks, I think Indianapolis was happy in the end when Peyton Manning was able to come back and he was able to put up those numbers in Denver, because I think it was a win-win situation in both sides, because of the fact of they got the number 1 overall pick, they got Andrew Luck, and then Denver goes and gets Peyton Manning, and they gave him all of this sense of security and everything else. I don't think there was ever a second in the middle of all of that where they felt like, oh, Peyton Manning is just not good no more. I feel like they were kind of in a position where they were just like, because they thanked him for, his playing time and his service in Indianapolis. And they felt like, it would be the right thing to really just kind of look forward to the future, which I could get that. But for Washington, this is just incompetent. This is the kind of thing that, listen, you went and traded for Alex Smith in the beginning, and you go and get him. You got a decent quarterback, and one that's competitive, one that can be competitive in an NFC East that is just so washed down. I mean, you look at the Eagles, you look at the Cowboys, you look at the Giants, and then you got Washington. Washington has a lot of good players. Chase Young, Montez Sweat. They have a lot of real good players, but for them to come out and say something like this to a guy that really just kind of was keeping them competitive until the time was right, because, I mean, think about it. Dwayne Haskins was never going to work in this league. Dwayne Haskins was never going to work in this league because he's not mature enough. And initially, he kept Washington competitive. And a lot of people are going to say, well, what about that Taylor Heineke kid? What about him? I like the kid, but I got to see more out of it.
You can't base nothing off of one game.
You can't. You really, really can't. That's where I'm just I need to see more games out of Taylor Heineke before I can even make that assumption or even make that kind of, debate or talk. But Alex Smith was really the only person. He's had years in this league. He was able to keep Washington to be competitive and let them rebuild from the inside out.
And the ignorance just continued to show with Washington, because they gave him an extension, Heineke, and I don't understand why, but apparently they see something out of him.
Right, and that's kind of something I can understand, where they're trying to like I mentioned, they want to get more games out of him. So I could kind of see why, but I'm just kind of disappointed.
Money though?
Well, no, I mean, I don't think it is.
No,
I don't think it is, but I just think that, that however they're going to plan this thing, I don't know, maybe they might give it a shot, but I just did not like this backlash. I really, really did not like this at all. I'm disappointed with how this was, but I'm hoping Alex Smith will be. I hope he gets another gig, and I hope this is going to be a good one for him. So, all right, well, there was your hot press. So, because again, I don't know what it is, but it just feels like to me with these quarterbacks in this league, because we're talking about this Deshaun Watson thing. We're already over. Like, here's the things we're already over on. We're over on the Carson Wentz thing because now he's in Indianapolis. We're kind of over the Jared Goff thing because now he's in Detroit and they swap him for Matthew Stafford. Now there's just, the talks of now Alex Smith in the middle of this thing and Deshaun Watson. And, it fascinates me so much about just like all of this, these quarterback moves. Like, it's so simple. Like, people just recycle them that easily. And I just kind of think about it like to the point of the Drew Lock thing, because ultimately everybody's looking for that it factor. And we're seeing it with a bunch of quarterbacks. I mean, we're seeing this with Mahomes, with Brady, with I feel like Deshaun does have an it factor in some ways, but as long as he's with a successful organization, he'll have that. Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees at one point. And then, of course, you got the second tier where they have an it factor, but we still continue to have criticisms of them. I think it's Kyler Murray. I think it's Justin Herbert. I truly think, Josh Allen, because listen, Josh Allen had a great season last year, and I think he's going to have an even better one. I think he's still going to continuously be successful as long as Brian Dable and Sean McDermott are there. And then you got Lamar Jackson, which a lot of people, have concerns of because he doesn't have an over-the-top receiver. So it's just like all this stuff with quarterbacks, like there's so much talks about him, and it's just like it really just kind of draws my interest with this whole league. And now just with all of this news kind of breaking out, I'm just like, they put quarterbacks in a position where it's like it's a make it or break it thing. No matter what organization you're involved in, and it's not like, because I think the only person who can overcome that is Tom Brady. I have to put in that argument. I feel like Tom Brady is the only person that can. While the rest of them, there's still going to be criticisms. There's still going to be questions, and it's just like, come on, like there is no perfect plan. You just have to make the plan work. Like I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think the only way we're gonna and even in JJ Watt's even more of a mystery too.
Yeah,
like everybody's like, well, where are you gonna go? And he's like, dude, I don't know. I take 2.5 hours to decide where I'm gonna eat every night. It's gonna,
I think JJ Watt's just kind of having fun with this. I think he's just kind of having fun with this because I don't think he's in any rush until officially like the off season itself, like the free agent signings and so much more are going to start, because I think he's kind of leaving this as like a surprise thing. Because a lot of people are just kind of talking like, oh, he's going to be a Green Bay Packer. He's from Wisconsin. He was a Badger. He's going to go to Green Bay, and like people kind of have that assumption, but he could turn around and either be a Ram or be a Charger or be a Raider or even, it'd probably be, either a Chief or a Bill. Like there are a lot of mysteries.
He could really end up anywhere.
Right. Because he still keeps his value and everything else. So, coming up next, and this is where, Jeremy and I are going to end up talking about this, and we'll probably lay down some of these free agents to come and everything else, because you know what, like I just want to break this down so simplified. Because a lot of these free agents, and there are also some restricted free agents as well, I'd like to see whether or not if they're going to stay or they're going to go. And if they go, what are some possible destinations? We'll have more of that coming up next in just a few minutes. So for all of you fantasy football geeks out there, and of course for all other fantasy sports and of course esports, wherever you may be, coast to coast, far and wide, you guys love winning cold hard cash, and you also love winning a lot of like your fantasy games and matchups. Well, there is a place for that called Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy, you can end up downloading on your mobile device in the App Store and Google Play, and you can also sign up online at thrivefantasy.com. When you do, use promo code SS Network. That's short for Spotlight Sports Network. When you put in your first deposit of $20 into your first play, Thrive Fantasy promises that they will match it up to $50 in your first play. And that is guaranteeing you a lot more play. Not to mention, a lot of these pool plays nowadays, especially in the NBA and the up-and-coming baseball season and so much more, even in esports, there's a lot you can win. You can win up to $15,000 in pool play. It's so much fun, and it's so easy. Go and sign up now at thrivefantasy.com. Promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com. Promo code SS Network.
What's up, fantasy champions? Spotlight Sports Network is excited to tell you about an amazing deal from Thrive Fantasy, your place for daily fantasy sports and esports. Right now, with promo code SS Network, Thrive Fantasy will match up to $50 of your first deposit. So go to thrivefantasy.com and sign up now with promo code SS Network. That's thrivefantasy.com, promo code SS Network. Welcome to the My City, My Game pod show featuring Raider J77, your place for all things Raiders and all things Trailblazers. Brought to you by the Spotlight Sports Network. Make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications. Now let's go.
Once a Raider, bruh, always a Raider, bruh. Shit simple as that. You look silver and black. Lot of bread invested in that O-line. Car insurance cost an arm and a leg to reach that goal line. It's go time.
Well, folks, as always, from Jeremy and I, we thank every single one of you guys for being on, and we appreciate your guys' love and support. And like I mentioned, in the beginning of the show, just before you came on, Jeremy, I'm actually really happy to have been on tonight. I know it had been an awfully long week, and at the same time, just over the past weekend, I ended up getting news from my family in New York that my grandmother in her late 70s has unfortunately passed away of a heart attack and pneumonia. And it was kind of a difficult time with the family, and especially with my mother, knowing the relationship between the two. I won't get too much into detail for our audiences and everything else, but I do appreciate all of the love and support and the understandings as well during this time. But it's felt so good to be back on tonight. And, it's just kind of those things that's like uplifting. So, it initially got my mojo back up, knowing that, no matter the hardships we go through in life, whether it's losses and, loss of a job or anything like that, you still continue to just keep your head up and continue to push forward and do what you can, because I think a lot of us are just kind of annoyed at this point that they're just like, can we just get back to normalization? Can we just get back to where we were before? But ultimately, this is where sometimes a lot of us just have to accept some of these things in our lives and accept the new reality, and so I really did appreciate every single one of you guys for jumping on, and I really do appreciate your guys' love and support. And yeah, I mean, I'll be good. I'm good, and everything else, it was a tough process, but at the same time, I was just very, very glad to have been on here tonight and just spending the time with you guys.
Yeah, going through something like that's never easy. I got something that'll cheer you up though, Jake. There you go. a Jimmy Schultz rookie Vegas Golden Knights card.
Oh
I'll send that your way, buddy.
Oh my God, that looks beautiful, man. That chrome.
This is from the Allure hockey collection. This is like one of the best boxes I've ever. This is the most bang for your buck. I mean,
man.
In this box, I got a Joel Farby game used jersey. Joel Farby,
yeah.
Game used jersey.
He would love that because
I got a Nico Strum Red Rainbow rookie autograph.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Limited 109 to 349. And I also got a Nikita Gusev game worn jersey piece as well in that. Along with a pretty a lot of other rookie cards, a lot of other rainbow ones. This one was from the Synergy collection here. I got a Jack Hughes rookie card, limited 187 out of 199, which is pretty damn rare as well. And a Jesper Boquist autoed numbered.
Oh, Jesper
30 out of 90.
Oh yeah, Jesper Boquist. Wow. That's nice, dude.
The card gods have smiled upon me today. Jake, you have no idea, man. I got so many hits. I don't even know what to do with all these cards, man. But
you know what? I'm gonna send you a link to one of the guys on YouTube that he does that same thing. I think I'll send it to you, man, because he does that same exact thing, and he's also a guy that works alongside with 2K, and he gets a lot of those promotions for some of those cards, and he's kind of the same way. Like, he's a guy that gets all of these like collector cards, and of course some of these rarities, with the with how many they printed out, like they're so legit.
It's what it's all about right now. That's what it's all about. Like, I don't care about no Justin Herbert $1,500 rookie card sign. I don't care about that, because honestly, it's not this is kind of like what it's all about right here. Just finding these. I don't spend a ton of money on cards. I really don't. I'll see some at Walmart. I'll grab some. I'll go to my card shop. I mean, yeah, I spent $80 on one box and $90 on the other. But at the same time, like, it's about the collection and that chase for those autos, those limited, those everything. That's kind of what makes it. I've started an account myself on Instagram, Snowcap Cards. If you guys want to go ahead and follow it, I post all my good gets that I get there. Because I've just gotten fully back into it, man. I got so many cards surrounding me right now. It's unreal. It's like swimming in cards.
Yeah, right. What's so funny is I actually have like a couple of real good cards, and all these are like basically Charger cards, and this is basically what I have from here. But I have this LaDainian Tomlinson own the game type of card right here. This thing is beautiful, and this thing is rainbow right here. That one's dope. This one was a holographic 31 touchdowns that one year when he just went completely off in that year. There's also this one here that's a top 25 fantasy patch. Like this one. Yeah, this thing is beautiful, dude.
That's a nice card. I got this awesome Lamar Jackson T-.
That's beautiful, dude.
Card. These Don Russ optic paninis are amazing. Like every single one of their cards, like a throwback Joe Namath.
Yeah, those are beautiful. Those right now are probably like the ones hot out of the oven, dude. Those Panini, the Panini Chromes are freaking beautiful.
Yeah, like even this one, Patrick Mahomes is a base card, but man, look at that. Just look at that shine.
Oh man,
amazing.
These
cards are so expensive. Like, super expensive. Like a hobby box for these 20 packs is like $750 retail.
Oh, for sure.
It's
dude.
Unreal. I got a steal. I walked into a guy's card shop today, and I got this little 20 pack box right here was $70. This for 20 cards.
Jeez.
It's unreal, and I really just wish all these investors would get the hell out of the hobby, because they're driving this shit up to the point where I can't afford it, man. I got 3 kids. I gotta like feed people and stuff, and they're just making it completely hard because they want to come in here and start pumping up cards with money, and it makes it difficult for a guy like me. I actually I got something hopefully coming up regards to that, and I'll talk to you about that off air. But hopefully, I got something going that'll be hopefully awesome here in a few days.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. These other 2 chromes that I actually have are actually like the touchdown counts and stuff like that from LT. And these are chrome ones from here.
Man, you should see if there's like the whole set of that out there, man. Own the whole set.
I got to say they might be. They've got to be.
It definitely looks like a numbered set. I mean, a good place to go check it out is called comc.com.
Yeah. Now this one right here that was chrome, this thing is freaking beautiful. This
I like that. I like that. Oh, you want to you want to see a really cool card? Hold on. This one is kind of cool. No, I don't want to close 2 tabs. Absolutely not. This one's cool. An orange slice, Max Verna right here. This is pretty cool. The way like these cards are wicked nowadays. This is 154 out of 199 numbered. The way that it's a rookie card too. Like the way this allure collection is amazing. Like all these cards look so awesome, and like they're cheap.
Right?
They're so cheap, and they look aesthetically like this iced out Austin Matthews. How cool is that, right?
Dude, that is freaking sick. And I love how they put the blue in there. That thing looks beautiful. You know what's also cool too? I have some of these baseball cards as well. And I have a lucky 13 card, and it's actually Ryan Braun's rookie card. It's a lucky 13.
Oh, wow.
Right up over here. This thing is freaking beautiful.
Or like this winter storm warning Dylan Larkin right here. That's pretty awesome. And it's got just the way they make these cards look nowadays is so awesome.
Yeah, they put so much like they put so much into detail in some of those
Upper Deck kills it.
Yeah, they do. They freaking killed it. Like
Upper Deck and Panini are like the 2 biggest ones right now. Like they're making like Topps baseball, like they're making it look amateur. I mean, this is the most decent card I pulled out of that is Topps Chrome, I guess laser auto Joey Bart rookie card.
Oh hell.
That's like the most decent pull. But then again, I only bought from retail. I didn't buy that box from a card store or anything. Card stores seem to be where you get all the good hits, man.
Oh, here's a card of your boy right here from one of the Leaf sets right here. Well, Vinny Castilla.
There you go.
Yep.
Good.
Set, dude,
original
nice.
Bomber.
Right? Oh,
there you go. Jesus Luzardo. There you go.
Oh yeah, Jesus Luzardo. That thing is beautiful, dude. Yeah. I can't wait to see what that kid does next year, dude. I hope he does.
Yeah, I'm specifically holding on to a lot of rookie cards because I'm just waiting to see what they do this season to see what kind of value those might hold. I'm not really into flipping the whole cards thing, but with cards I really don't like or don't want to hold for my personal collection. This is a pretty cool. Hold on one second. I'll get you something from my personal collection I picked up this week that I thought was really awesome.
Yeah.
So, let's see. Hold on. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
I picked up a couple of these that were really awesome, and I thought I just saw them online, and one of these was numbered. But you know, I'm a huge Colorado Avalanche fan, and I thought Joe Sakic and his Quebec Nordiques.
Dude, that is beautiful.
I got like an 18 card lot of like there's all of him, and it's like Nordiques or Avalanche, and I was like, well, hell, I don't have these cards. Like these cards are pretty rare. Dude, I don't know how rare they are, but like there's only a certain amount of years that Joe Sakic was in a Quebec Nordiques jersey.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Just before they ended up initiating to becoming the Colorado Avalanche. My God, that's freaking beautiful.
And then one of my most proud pickups too was this Patrick Waugh Synergy 327 out of 999. Stanley Cup Journey hollow.
Dude, that has got to be super valuable right there. Especially to look at that thing.
You wouldn't believe it. I only paid like $10 for it.
Yeah, but imagine that, dude. How much that would end up going for that freaking Patrick Waugh.
Oh,
card.
you should see this series that Upper Deck came out with. It's called The Cup, and it's like $1,000. It's 5 cards, but they all have like patches of legends and autos of legends. Like those are way, way more valuable.
This one I thought was cool. These ones were opening days from 2013. So this one's kind of sick. This one was a Detroit Tigers Prince Fielder. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then this one here is beautiful. This one's Max Scherzer's opening day. This thing is beautiful.
Ooh, nice little hollow too. I like it.
Yeah,
I always like hollows, man. I like the holographics. That's why I like this whole Allure collection, because even with just the base cards, they're just like this.
Oh, look at this one. I have another holographic, and this one's Adrian Gonzalez from the Dodgers.
There you go.
That thing is friggin' beautiful.
There you go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have my fair shares on a couple of them right from here. They have some Superstar Celebration ones.
Nowadays, it's all about these jersey ones and these autoed ones and the numbers. Like those are all pretty valuable now, because now they're starting to like either like this is like a sticker auto. You can see he's got like they put a sticker on it when he signed it, but it's still an autograph. But
oh man,
cards are just nuts.
I think Ty is gonna hate me for this one, but I have a play hard of Alex Gordon.
That's a really cool photo. See, that's the other thing.
Seriously, dude.
That's the other thing.
Honestly, when I play outfield, I always watch Alex Gordon, dude. Like he's the one guy that is just he traps the ball every time.
I wish they would have gotten a card of Matt Holliday when he slid into home plate and busted his face in that one game playoff in 2007 with the Padres, where he just slid into home plate and he busted his whole face open.
Yeah,
that'd have been a cool card to have.
Dude, this one, I think my buddy Hammer is going to hate me on this one. But I even have another one of those cards with David Wright.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Is it like a Velcro material?
It's actually like one of those it's like it's kind of like a Velcro, but it's like it's movable though. It's pretty freaking awesome. And what's cool about it, you can see the crowd in the background.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Or like these
Here's a Derek Jeter one right there.
There you go. I got a throwback one of him in this set here. It's like a 1930s one, and it's got like his laser auto on it. These cool are those Don Ruspinese. These are the rated rookies ones. These are kind of cool. This one here is a CD Lamb right here for the Cowboys.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, and then they got one of Darnell Mooney too. Like they're just different.
Oh, Cooley's gonna love that one.
Yeah, like these are really, really awesome cards.
Yeah, they are definitely the ones that people are honestly fighting for right now.
Here's a pretty good one right here. A rated rookie, kind of blacked out Jacob Eason, quarterback of the Colts.
Oh, that one's nice. I think EJ is gonna like that. In the bike spoke. What the hell?
With the bike spokes.
Yeah, the bike spokes. Oh yeah, this one here was freaking awesome. It's Edwin Encarnacion.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing,
dude.
Good player too.
Yeah, dude. 2012, when he changed his damn swing, dude, that's when he just started going off. Like I noticed that because he wasn't doing this anymore. He was just kind of staying leveled and then just let it rip.
Just keeping it loose.
Oh, this one I got to give to my my buddy for his brother-in-law, because there you go. His brother-in-law has got to come down here to come and sign this damn thing. The play art of Bryce Harper sliding into home plate.
So you know somebody whose brother-in-law is Bryce Harper?
Yep. Yeah, his brother-in-law is literally Bryce Harper, dude. It's crazy.
That is so nuts. I mean, wow. I mean, Topps kind of does okay. I mean, this was a pretty cool card. Let's see, where did I do with it? Oh, right here. This is a Brandon Woodruff one I just pulled.
Oh, that's nice.
little hollow action there. They put those in every now and again, but they're definitely not as common as some of those higher dollared sets. And like hockey is so undervalued right now as far as like the quality of card that they put out. Like you would be surprised, but hockey's on the lower end of all collecting cards right now, and they just put out the best quality product in my opinion.
Oh, there's your common card right there, a little pony,
cargo.
Yeah, little cargo right there.
that guy had such a baseball porn swing though. Like the minute he got,
and it still does not add up of how the hell he even does that.
The amount of explosiveness he had, and the way it just looked when he got a hold of one and he ripped one was just like, oh.
And every time it
awesome.
just seemed super easy to him. Like it was, yeah.
Yeah, he'd rip it and then just trot around the bases like it was nothing.
Right, like he's just like, all right, I'm gonna walk down here and everything else. Like, what the hell?
Here you go, Jake. Tony Kemp here, and it looks like, is that a throwback Oakland A's?
Actually, that's a current one.
Is that?
Yeah, that's a current one right there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, because I love the fact that they have those Kelly Greens, dude.
Yeah,
those freaking Kelly Greens. Like, I have one of those jerseys, and they're absolutely gorgeous.
See, I don't understand what the point of these were too. They're like these autos, but they're definitely not autos. They're you can tell they're lasered on. They're not.
Yeah, those ones definitely got to be lasered on.
What's cool about them is the old school backing on them. How they have the old school back to them, which looks really, really cool. But yeah, man, I mean. Well, I mean, if you know somebody who's a father-in-law, Bryce Harper, good God.
Yeah,
I got cards of his for days, both Nationals and Phillies.
Oh, hell yeah, dude. Like freaking like those right there. Yeah. I mean, even if you send them to me, I'd give them right to him. And I'm just like, hey, think you could send these off to Bryce, man, and tell him to sign them and all that.
I'm trying to search for that Jeter card. Because that was an interesting card there. See, I like it when they do these throwbacks too, like this throwback of Ken Griffey Jr. here.
Oh yeah, those ones are nice. Oh, here's another one of your good pitchers, Jeff Francis.
Jeff Francis, yeah, from that World Series run.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's not my pitcher. I'm not a Rockies fan anymore, but I remember him for sure.
Yeah, Jeff Francis, he was good, and then just eventually, once he went to a different team, he just kind of fell off the wagon right there.
I kind of look at that whole 07 year with the Rockies as kind of like a major league type deal, where they're just like terrible, and everybody just decided to play one good year, and just somehow it worked out.
Yeah. You know what's interesting? They need to make more of these, but these are these playoff prime cards, and this is funny. This is freaking Chris Chandler before he became a Atlanta Falcon. And he was a freaking Houston dude. Like, those are beautiful.
You know, it was weird. My father-in-law actually had he had two Steve McNair, and I shit you not, they said Tennessee Oilers on them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I was like, these have to be worth something, because there's not really much stuff with it that says Tennessee Oilers on it. And I looked it up and it's like $2. I was like, really? I was like, that's Steve McNair too. Like it's not some, Chris Chandler. Was that after his Falcons playing days?
Was before his Falcon playing.
Okay. That was before they made that 1 year Super Bowl run where they got absolutely destroyed by my Broncos.
Oh, do you even remember this guy? Travis Henry.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll tell you why I remember Travis Henry, because he has like 13 kids in 12 states. But yeah, no, he had a pretty decent career with the Bills. He was a pretty decent running back for the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
But yeah, definitely a problematic dude in the locker room, to say the least, on and off the field.
Yeah, right. Like, Jesus Christ, man, that guy needed some help.
He really did, man. I just can't believe that though. Can you believe that a Justin Herbert rookie autographed card $1,500. It's go for $1,500 up to $2,000.
The
Probably played 6 games.
Actually, he's played since week 2. So he's only
he's 1 game short of a full season, but
a year. Like that's the thing. That's what's upping the value up on it is because the fact of winning Rookie of the Year on top of all that.
Dude, Tom Brady's stuff is just there was a Tom Brady autographed that was only out of 30, and it's going for near $1 million. It was a rookie. It was a rookie autoed out of 30.
Oh wow!
And it's probably going to cross the threshold of $1 million.
Oh, I believe it, dude. That's damn.
Those types of cars you can't find just laying around.
No, hell no. You cannot. Like you cannot at all like find those freaking lying around. That's crazy. I
got some more Knights cards coming your way too. So
oh hell yeah, dude. That one
all different sorts and kinds. You'll have your little Knights collection. I even started my own Knights collection.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just because they were a new team and everything. I want to try and go back and collect the year that they came into existence to see, because that's the thing that I'm starting to realize with the Kraken now coming into play. Those are going to be some highly sought after cards when those come out because they're going to be first edition cards.
Yeah, they really are. They're going to be first edition cards, and that's
that'll be highly sought after.
Oh, for sure, dude. No joke. This one here, I have got to see how much this one is worth. This is a Henry Ellard card right here, but this is one of Topps finest. I got to see how much the worth is on this thing.
That's a nice looking card. I like it how they almost make it X-ray.
They really do.
Yeah, that is really cool.
Yeah, that thing is freaking beautiful. And then they have another one of these. What the hell is this, dude? But they call it like one of these playoff sharpshooters, and it's Jim Druckenmiller. Apparently, is a quarterback.
That looks cool.
That does look freaking cool.
And you think like cards like that, you'd be like, man, they got to be worth something. And then you look them up online, like $2.
I'm just like, yeah, he must have got overhyped and then sucked. And I'm like, God damn.
It's just something like that. I don't know. It's weird. It's weird how cards work.
Yeah.
Like, awesome ones that you think that look cool would be worth something. And I mean, that's how it used to be. Ain't no more.
Yeah, not anymore. Yeah. That's true. And that's the kind of the thing. I mean, it's kind of hit or miss. It's whether or not if you actually do come across some. Like even this one, like I think Gooley might hate it, but this is a future fantasy team, Cade McNown in Chicago.
Is he related to Josh at all?
Oh my God. Well, McNown. Possibly.
That's crazy. Like, did you see that little piece that SportsCenter did for Josh McCown's kids? Like how they wore all of his jerseys on Show and Tell Day?
I saw that. That was freaking hilarious, dude. Like, oh, I was laughing my ass off on it, and then they're still missing some.
Yeah.
Let me see what I have in this pile right up over here. Hopefully I come across something right
I had one more Knights card too I wanted to show you. I was going to give you. Let's see, where was that?
Let's see. Oh hell, Bobby. Oh, Heppard. I was like, what the hell? What's that?
Look at this. This is I'm telling you, dude.
You might love this, dude. This is a Pro Line Classic, but it's Shane Dronett. Look at how freaking beautiful
that's nice.
That Denver Crush orange right there.
Yeah, I went and I picked up a base pack the other day, and just sitting in there randomly was a Steve Atwater in his Orange Crush. I was like, hey.
Oh, that's worth
I'll take that.
Worth it, dude.
Here you go. I told you the card god smiled on me. A Sidney Crosby 738 out of 899 NHL Journey Through the Years.
Oh, that's nice, dude.
It's not that great of a card, but like it's numbered and it's Sidney Crosby. That alone, alone will just drive value on its own.
This one, Fleer Metal 1995. This one's Brian Blades.
Of course, nice.
Yeah, of course, nobody
Fleer used to make some really good cards.
Fleer really did.
Did they get bought out? Here's a good one. Number 2 out of 799, Andre Texier, rookie.
Andre Texier,
Yeah.
Or Alexander Texier,
Yeah, with his little flash. I got a Victor Olofsson, 144 out of 999, exceptional beginnings, little hollow here. You know, this Synergy collection was not that bad either. This was actually last year's, and I got it for like $80. This is a great little collection. I got a ton of hits out of this little box.
Oh, damn.
The Synergy, they're really good cards, man. I got a Patrick Kane NHL Journey, 418 out of 999. This looks like his rookie picture. This definitely doesn't look like Patrick Kane of now.
No, hell no, dude. Damn.
That's crazy, man. The amount of hits I got today, I just feel so blessed.
Right?
For sure. I'm like almost blinded by looking at all these hollows. Like staring into it all like, I
know, and they're just like freaking
shiny as hell.
Yeah, they're like flashing right up at you, dude. Freaking hilarious.
Oh my God. Here's that other Vegas Golden Knights one. Allure top 50, Nicholas Haug. There you go.
Nick Hague. Damn.
Yeah, Nick Hague. There you go. Dude, I'll send that one out to you, buddy.
Dude, hell yeah, dude. That thing is freaking sweet. Holy shit.
Nice.
Oh,
we got to talk about that. Really? We want to talk about the Knights and the Avs?
Yeah, right. Oh yeah, that was part of the segment and everything else. What did you think about that whole outdoor series? You know what? I summed this up. I was like, this is typical Nevada because of the fact that we're just part of a desert, and the fact that at any point in time we're just gonna end up warming up, and then it's gonna melt the ice down.
Well, the NHL needs to stop trying to play day games. It just needs to stop. It never works out. It's either like it gets too hot, the ice melts, or the sun's in the eyes of the players, and it just screws up everything. Like they just need to like push all those games till night and just do what they need to do. Like put it in the nighttime. I understand you're going to lose the scenery. I understand it's not going to be as cool looking and it's not going to be as scenic looking on TV, but you need to put those types of games at night because it's better off for the players. It really, really is.
Right. And that's honestly just one of the reasons where I'm just like, to me, for me living out here in Vegas and everything else, like I'm so used to it when it comes to, the heat and everything else. And those were one of my just absolute concerns was I just was not sure exactly how that was going to pan out. I thought this thing in the outdoor series, like I liked the fact that they played it at night. And I think, ultimately it was great. I think that if they continuously play that at night, and it keeps the temperature and everything else, like, dude, if it opens up and everything else with this COVID thing, I'm totally going to a game. Like, I'm definitely going to a game because it's like a winter classic. It's honestly like a winter classic to me, and I wanted to be able to experience that. That's the part.
You could have put a boat out on Tahoe. Nobody was stopping you.
No, like nobody was ever stopping you out there in Lake Tahoe. Like. Yeah.
Okay, Charles, here you go. You wanted a Coyotes card, a rainbow Phil Kessel.
Yep. There you go.
A little white rainbow Phil Kessel right here.
Yeah, that's a beautiful one right there.
I don't love hockey fans do love day games, but just not outdoors. It's not good for the players. The fans might like day games, but the players sure as hell don't. Go ask any player if he likes playing with the glare of sun off the ice on him, and he doesn't.
No,
I'd be blinding.
I enjoy more of the night games like that. Like the nighttime games to me are personally the ones I enjoy more.
Absolutely, especially when some of those stadium series games are way better at night.
Oh yeah, I mean I totally agree, but so just as I mentioned before here, folks, and of course, since we ended up showing off all these cards and we're definitely getting down to time and only 10 minutes left of the segment, but we definitely want to throw out our best for last as well, because we know that free agency is right there around the corner for us.
And there are a lot of buzzing free agents and stuff like that. So Jeremy and I are going to end up breaking down a lot of these players. And these are some of the big time names of, free agents that I like, we personally think are either going to stay or they're going to go. There's a handful of free agents out there that I just look at this and I'm just thinking to myself, they're real good names and there are a lot of them that I think do them some good. So let's go ahead and break down up on it. So the first player we have is Dak Prescott. So I think what's going to happen with Dallas is talking about, another franchise tag for what? Dallas right now is kind of hit in a position where they should have paid Dak. There's no question that they should have paid Dak. Instead, they overpaid for a lot of these players that last year were top 20. That's just what they finished up at. And now they're stuck in this jam. Dak Prescott, I think, is a competitor, is a guy that wins games. And he's proven he's a guy that doesn't really make a ton of mistakes. I'll be honest with you. I don't think he really makes a ton of mistakes. So I feel like I think for me in the safest route, I think he stays with Dallas because Dallas right now can't win without him. And whatever this whole thing that they're doing with Mike McCarthy and all this other stuff, I don't know what Dallas is doing. They're kind of stuck in a jam. But I feel like that if this is the case, I feel like they're going to try to to at least get him on a franchise tag again. And I think at some point he's going to be out. So I feel like he's going to stay in Dallas, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, right now I think he did have the injury woes last year, but at the same time, I think Jerry Jones still realizes what kind of value he still has there with Dak and Zeke, and I think until that somewhat falls apart or they just financially can't afford it, I see him riding with that until basically the wheels fall off at some point or another.
So, yeah, absolutely. So the number 2 now is Chris Godwin, if he's staying or leaving. I feel like there's nothing against, Tampa Bay and any of this, but I just feel like, to me, I think Chris Godwin's going to leave. I think because to me personally, he's won a Super Bowl now. Tom Brady has got him to a Super Bowl. And he's also a guy that has proven that he is very productive as well for the most part. So this was kind of it. This is what I've looked from here. So 67% of his red zone targets were touchdowns this season alone. And his presence definitely opened up the Buccaneers playbook. So he's a reliable target. He's got a catching percentage of at least 78% on 84 targets. So I feel like at only at 25 years old, I feel like the Colts would be a really good pick, a really good place to getting Chris Godwin. The Raiders I will consider. There are at least a few places that I can consider that for Chris Godwin, I think he'll be very valuable elsewhere. It's nothing against Tampa Bay. I think that if he stays, it's probably because of Tom Brady. But I feel like Chris Godwin's going to go.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to predict anything in that type of situation, but ultimately, I mean, let's get real here. It's up to Tom Brady.
Pretty much.
If he feels like that Godwin's worth keeping, he's going to do what he can to keep him. But I'm not entirely sure. I honestly, man, Tampa Bay was one of those teams I really didn't follow most of the year just because I thought, they're overhyped. I don't think they're going to do it, but they ended up doing it and shoving it up all of our hoops. Right. And giving just a giant middle finger to not only Bill Belichick, but the entire rest of the NFL. But, it's all going to depend on, I don't really want to say cap situation because there's ways to manipulate that and ways to get around that. And a lot of teams do that, especially with the amount of talent that you have on that team. But yeah, ultimately it'll come down to Tom Brady.
Oh, absolutely. So Trent Williams, the offensive tackle who played with San Francisco last year, staying or going. I truly think there's a lot of speculation and there are a lot of sources right now that I've been told that Trent Williams was very comfortable in San Francisco. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he was more comfortable there than he was in Washington. But this is the thing. Trent Williams is going to be 30. He's 33 years old. His value is still good, but for how long of that value will we still kind of keep around? I think it's one that they're going to pay him well, but initially you want to take at least like maybe a 2-3 year deal to just kind of keep him around, because initially then he'll be 36. And I think it's a smarter way for it. And a lot of teams are looking for left tackles. That's the one thing that they're looking for. I feel like Trent Williams, to me, I think is going to be on the open market. He's going to go elsewhere. There's nothing against the San Francisco 49ers because they've been really good with their offensive line. But I think because of the production, he's very much going to ending up elsewhere. That's going to end up paying him well. So that's just what I feel like with Trent Williams.
Yeah, as we see it more so too, Jake, your tackles, specifically offensive tackles, are starting to become a little bit more valued more than they once were in the NFL. It's becoming a pretty valuable position, as a lot of teams are. My theory is, as the value increases on the quarterback position, so then in turn does it with the offensive tackle position as well. Nobody's really going to come out and admit it or say it, but in turn, you got a good offensive line. It's gonna lead to great quarterbacking. So, yeah, I mean, he's not going to have a tough time finding a new home, even if he does go. That's for sure. Every team in the NFL can use a great offensive tackle.
Oh, there's no doubt about it. I mean, that's probably one of the most valuable pieces that, wherever team he goes to, or even if he stays put, it's the most valuable position you could ever ask for, especially when you've got right-handed quarterbacks. Allen Robinson, this is an interesting thing to me. Staying or going. Allen Robinson going. The only way Chicago can really make this work with Allen Robinson is that if they pay him his money. But right now, you're stuck with, you're kind of in this position where you're in this loophole because you're dealing with Mitch Trubisky. You're still trying to figure it out with some of these wide receivers. If Allen Robinson doesn't really get his pay cut, as I'm not saying he is like, he's not one of like bigger hype wide receivers, but he's good enough. I truly do believe he's good enough. But initially, to me, I think Allen Robinson, where he goes, he's going to be respected and paid well. I just feel like with this loophole with the Chicago Bears and what they're doing, this is another team. I don't even know what their identity is. I know they have a spectacular defense, but as far as the offensive side, they can't score points. They can't really move downfield. Every single one of their numbers are all in the low 25s. And that's just something that I think you plug in Allen Robinson, whether he's a 1 or a 2 in some of these other plays. I mean, hell, I feel like Green Bay would be on top of it to go in and getting Allen Robinson, in my opinion. But I feel like he's going to end up leaving Chicago, unless if Chicago does something out of the woodworks and they pay him his money. That's just the only thing that I can see with Allen Robinson.
Well, hell, I mean, Chicago is just such a mess. I mean, one could argue, hell, they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Matt Nagy, let alone some of the other key pieces that you just mentioned there. It just seems to be like almost kind of the same status quo of what's going on in Philadelphia now is going on with Chicago.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And again, I'm
going to say it's neither. The Arizona Cardinals won't even sniff the playoffs.
No. Until they fix this offensive line, it's not going to happen. J.J. Watt. Of course, a lot of people have been rumor buzzing about this one. Oh, he's definitely going. Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going for sure. There's no doubt about that. Now, there are a lot of places that I've pointed out. I'm going to have an upload on this as well for Chargers content, but I feel like the Chargers, the Rams, the Packers, for one, and then the Bills, I don't know like the Chiefs go. I feel like if he goes to Kansas City, it's just going to piss everybody off. Like that's just what I feel.
The rich get richer, or Tampa Bay,
yeah. Like what is the need? Like what the hell is the need? And so I feel like JJ Watt, and also let me put the Raiders in as well, because I feel like you put him there with Max Crosby, that pressure and that line is just going to be unbelievable. But JJ Watt still keeps his value. And he's a guy that also brings leadership into the locker room, holds a lot of players accountable. So I think what you're getting as far as the price line goes is worth it. So I think, JJ Watt, he's definitely going. But of course, he's kind of playing around with this whole thing on social media about, determining his destination at some point in the coming days.
Absolutely.
Brandon Scherf. So I actually really did like this. So Brandon Scherf, of course, coming in from Washington, is another guy too that was such a valuable piece on the interior guard space, because aside from the tackles that we've all been talking about, the interior guards are definitely one that is really the most important. I feel like he's going to I truly feel like he's going to go, because I think initially there are teams out there that are literally getting aggressive trying to find an interior guard. And I feel like Brandon Scherf right now, because of the fact that he's a number 6 best free agent out there, he's a guy that's holding up a lot of that value. I mean, you look at what Washington had when they had Trent Williams and Brandon Scherf, both of them really exceeded expectations. And I think Scherf, if he gets into a really good rhythm, one of these offensive lines, and no matter what organization it may be, I think he's a very valuable piece. So I'm definitely saying he's going for sure.
I would agree with you there.
So this is also going to bring up to your guy, Von Miller. So my thing is if he's staying or going. Now, I'm sure you've heard a lot of rumor buzzes, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of just, different insights. But this is one that it's the top of any team's free agency wish, unless if Denver doesn't pick up his option. And my only thing is with Von Miller. Now, there have been rumored reports because of just, the whole situation with Denver and as far as this quarterback situation and everything else, it's kind of tough. Now, I know that it's lethal because of the fact that you have Von Miller and Bradley Chubb there in the front line. And then on top of it, you got all these other defensive players. But the other question would be if they are really going to end up franchise tagging Justin Simmons. There's a lot of outlooks.
That's $1 million question right now.
Yeah, it is. Like that's the one that, you look at Denver right now. I feel like Von Miller, and in my honest opinion, and I hate to say this, but I think he's going to go. I've been seeing some reports right now that there are a few teams under the radar. In fact, former Broncos teammate Chris Harris has been kind of playing the idea of possibly recruiting Von Miller to the Chargers. If the Chargers don't decide to re-sign Melvin Ingram and they decide to let him walk in free agency, that's going to be a guy that they're going to end up looking at as their top priority. And I just feel like, if that does not get played well in Denver, as far as the option goes, I just feel like that might be an interesting destination for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's time for the Broncos to move off Von Miller. I really do. You just don't know what's going on with this whole investigation thing. He's coming off an injury. I just don't think he's worth the money that the Broncos re-signed him to anymore. Yeah. I just don't. I just don't think he was the player that he once was.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you on that one because and ultimately, I mean, he still does have some value in him, but of course, for how much longer are you going to have that value? So I think, you got Bradley Chubb, You got a guy that, you could at least build off of, but at some point they're going to look for at least another edge rusher.
And Shelby Harris.
Yeah, exactly. Shaq Barrett. I think Shaq Barrett's going to stay. I think ultimately, because of how Todd Bowles set the whole thing up, and think about it, this is a guy that constantly was putting pressure on Patrick Mahomes. There's no doubt about that. And how he's really set this up with Tampa Bay's defense, I think is really valuable. So I think the last thing that Todd Bowles wants to do is letting a guy like Shaq Barrett walk, and knowing that Tampa, they're going to be without their big time pass rusher. So I think he's going to stay, and I think he's going to stay very probably because of the fact that he just doesn't want to leave the scheme and the coaching from the defensive standpoint.
Yeah, he was such a huge part of that defense. I mean, as you could see, he's really a big part of any defense that he really goes to. I mean, he was a big part in helping the Broncos win the Super Bowl 50 as well. So, I mean, he's just a really stud edge rusher, and he'll continue to show that.
Yeah. So, of course, this does bring back the name. Justin Simmons is now a guy staying or going. I feel like Denver, and like you mentioned, and I don't know what you've heard as far as sources go, but Vic Fangio, and since he worked with Eddie Jackson in the past in Chicago, really brought the best out of his value. And I think with Eddie Jackson, he's done that mutually as well. I think, I feel like, honestly, I think Justin Simmons may stay. I know people kind of have this speculation and such about Justin Simmons, but I think that if you lose that top safety for Denver, you're going to get exposed. I think that's initially what may happen. So I think that because of how Vic Fangio really put this thing together for the secondaries and stuff like that, I think Justin Simmons, he's going to stay. And I don't think that like Denver's really ready to move off of him. I mean, that's just kind of my honest opinion with this whole thing. So I just feel like Justin Simmons will stay. And I think some point down the road, they're going to need to build their secondaries.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say now because, I mean, the last press conference of the year, you saw Justin Simmons, and it just seemed like maybe he was saying goodbye. I'm not entirely sure where exactly the Broncos are going with this. I mean, if the rumors are true that they're in the front runner position for Deshaun Watson, that also comes into play with what to do with Justin Simmons as well. So it just kind of all depends on where the Broncos are at internally right now with that situation and those discussions. Really, to me, I'm on the fence about it. I could see it going either way. I could see him staying, or I can see him going. Yeah,
absolutely. Now this brings back to the other Buccaneers linebacker, Levante David. It's interesting. He spent his entire career in Tampa, has not left, and I just look at it this way with Levante David. He's a guy that scans the field. That's very important for a lot of defensive teams, including Tampa Bay. I feel like Levante David, I think it'll be tough to say, but I just truly think he might stay. He's going to stay because of the fact that like he spent his entire career. I think he's willing to stay for another year in Tampa until whatever happens with Tom Brady. I think that's what's going to happen. I think I see Levante David going at the same time Tom Brady retires because he spent his entire career in Tampa. Still is a valuable linebacker. But I just feel like because of just how Tampa Bay is really reshaped and really how they built themselves, why even leave it? You know what I mean? And I think
if they broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. And so I just feel like Levante David's going to stay there until at the point when Tom retires. I think he's probably going to end up retiring with him and retire all of his years as a Buccaneer.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more.
So let's see. There are a couple of others of some other key free agents out there. J.C. Jackson. I like him. I think he's a really, really good defensive secondary in New England. The only thing that's going to be tough, because of course it's Belichick, and you know how he loves his defense, and you know how he likes to produce some of the guys like Stephon Gilmore and a lot of these guys. It's going to be very tough to pull away a guy like JC Jackson, but I feel like he might leave. There are some really good value in it. There are a lot of teams that are needing some real good defensive secondaries, especially even at the corner position. I think that if he goes, his value is going to climb up higher because of the fact of, a New England system he's been a part of. And then not to mention, just the quality, and then not to mention the play that he has had in his position, I think is very valuable. So I think JC Jackson might leave.
Yeah, I mean, like we alluded to with that offensive tackle in San Francisco, everybody could also use a great defensive back. Those are also a highly valued position on the defensive end. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's not going to have difficulty finding something if he heads out to the open market.
Right. Kenny Golladay. So here's what's interesting about Kenny Golladay. Unlike some of these wide receivers like Chris Godwin and Allen Robinson, and a couple of them, he's probably one of the most under the radar wide receivers I've seen in this league. And this is also coming from a Detroit franchise that they could not figure out their wide receivers after Megatron retired. They tried to fill it with Golden Tate. They tried to fill it with Marvin Jones. Kenny Golladay comes into the picture, and I think Kenny Golladay really emerged as one of like those top 10, top 15 wide receivers. I mean, this is a guy that is balls to the wall type of player. He's a guy that's willing to end up making plays. But you kind of have to ask yourself, are you willing to are you going to stick around with this process with Detroit, or are you going to seek your value elsewhere? I feel like, to me, if I'm Kenny Golladay, I'm going to seek my value elsewhere, because right now I'm just trying to get out of this laughing stock and this joke of a franchise in Detroit, because I don't know what the hell they're really getting themselves into. So I'm just like, you know what? This is so much dysfunction. I'm getting the hell out of here. This is probably the reason why that I'm getting hurt. So I feel like Kenny Golladay, it is by far a leave for me.
Yeah, I mean, obviously with the departure of Matthew Stafford, it's becoming pretty much a wholesale dumpster fire in Detroit, and with no change in ownership in sight as well. I mean, I can't honestly blame the guy if he wants to just up and leave. I wouldn't blame him at all.
Right, exactly. Joe Thuney. So here's what's interesting about this, because New England initially put the franchise tag on Joe Thuney. I think he's very valuable as a guard, and of course, another offensive upgrade on the line. Especially when you're talking about a New England team that for years and years and years always produces a top 10 offensive line, like no doubt. I think initially when you see that, really puts together a really, really good mesh on an offensive line, especially in the interior guard. So I feel like Thuney, because right now this is kind of a thing. So Miami was initially interested before New England put the franchise tag in. I think there are going to be some reloaded pieces. So I kind of see Joe Thuney leaving from here. I really do think that he's going to end up leaving, because I just see New England right now at this point. They're trying to reload. They're trying to get at least a little younger to keep themselves competitive. Now, again, these are guys that have been next man up for their offensive line, and they've done exceptionally well. I give kudos to the offensive line coaches in New England for how long they've kept the consistency from there. But I just think Joe Thuney, he's going to look for a different place, and I think they're really going to pay him up to his value.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then, of course, this is one that's interesting to me, but Hunter Henry. So this is an interesting topic for me to talk about, because I remember seeing an interview with Hunter Henry,
he told people he wants to play somewhere where they have a good quarterback. And I'm guessing it's probably going to be one with experience. I just kind of am like, well, what are you not seeing with Justin Herbert? But again, you've got Hunter Henry, who's had his fair shares of injuries. One that I just don't think he's seen his share of targets. And I feel like if he goes to a place where he kind of meets those requirements, where he wants more targets and he wants to be more of like that reliable guy, I'm just not sure what his production value is, and I think that's kind of something initially, but I feel like the plan is, I think Hunter Henry's going to stay. He'll either stay now if because the other part is, I'm hearing sources right now about the Chargers potentially putting their chips in for Philadelphia Eagles tight end Zach Ertz. And I feel like that's going to be interesting of a change for the Chargers moving forward if they can't get a deal with Hunter Henry. They franchise tag him this past year, and just to try to at least figure out where their cap is, and then at the same time make it affordable. But I feel like Hunter Henry might stay, but if nothing else really works, then he'll probably seek his business elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, everybody could use a name like that around their team. So, yeah, for sure.
You see here. There are a few, and here's a good one. So here's a good one to me that really kind of stood out. But John Johnson, from the Rams, I think he's going to leave. I think ultimately, what I'm being told, because he had success under Brandon Staley as a defensive coordinator. In his very first year as a defensive coordinator, made the Rams #1 defense in the league. Well, Brandon Staley's with the Chargers now. And I feel like part of that is kind of leaning towards John Johnson possibly landing a contract to the Chargers. And if that happens, do you know how much leverage and I think support Derwin James is going to get? I feel like this is one that, because John Johnson's a real good secondary. And I think he fits in well with a secondary that's going to have Chris Harris. I'm hoping that they re-sign Michael Davis. But I feel like because of the connection that him and Brandon Staley have had as basically as defensive minds, he's going to go where Brandon's at. So I feel like John Johnson's going to leave, and I feel like he's going to end up taking an affordable contract with the Chargers just to be a part of that system that Brandon Staley has.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah. I mean, time tells all, time tells all.
So here's an interesting one, and the last one here for this segment. But Aaron Jones, the running back for the Green Bay Packers, there's just some interesting speculation here into Green Bay. So of course, Aaron Jones has had back-to-back 1,000 rushing yard seasons. And what's so interesting about this with the Packers, because initially they drafted a running back in AJ Dillon. I think the kid's really good. I see a lot of potential in AJ Dillon. He's a guy that's a power back, busts through defensive lines, and the offensive line actually builds holes to get him to run through. And he'll get rushes he'll get really good carries. But I think that seeing Aaron Jones's name out there as a free agent, there are some teams right now that are looking into running backs. Miami right now is starting to put their chips into getting a running back and possibly getting Aaron Jones to solidify that run game. But this is kind of an interesting loophole. But I feel like Aaron Jones might leave because initially Green Bay is not going to suffer with their run game. They may go and draft another guy, or they may pay a low-end running back just to create depth. But you think about it, that's, I feel like, okay, this is the reason why they drafted A.J. Dillon. So I just don't know that if because the price is not right. But I like Aaron Jones. I think he's capable of playing in this league for back-to-back 1,000 rushing yard seasons. And he's a guy that, you really can utilize in every single situation. So I just feel like
almost kind of like a Christian McCaffrey.
Almost close. Yeah, almost as close. But I feel like Aaron Jones, because of Green Bay's situation and what they're trying to do to get, I just feel like this is opening up cap for them to go and get Aaron Rodgers, a wide receiver. So that's why I feel like Aaron Jones will leave because of that specific. But it's not like Green Bay is going to hurt in the long run because they have AJ Dillon. They literally have AJ Dillon for nothing. So they're going to go and get a wide receiver, help out, and finally fix Aaron Rodgers' problems, and they're going to support him. And I think
that's the big thing.
Exactly. And so I think that's why I think Aaron Jones, he might leave. And I think Miami, don't be surprised if they don't throw in their chips to go and get him.
Especially they get Deshaun Watson.
Right.
Especially they get Deshaun Watson. They're going to need to give him some weapons because the ones that the Dolphins have right now are not that great. This, like I said, the Justin Simmons situation, I'm on the fence about. It could go either way. It's all going to depend on too many unanswered questions right now with Aaron Rodgers and where he's sitting. I'm hearing that, like, one minute he's okay. I mean, in the next minute he's butting heads with management. It just is all going to depend on that, really.
Yeah. I just don't think I just don't think that Aaron Rodgers is going to leave, because here's the thing, Matt, he's going to leave. Like, here's the thing. They solved the problem with their coach and got Matt LaFleur. He just couldn't work with Mike McCarthy because he was outdated. And with what Matt LaFleur brings to the table and his scheme and what he does with the offense, I think is the one thing that's so attractive to Aaron Rodgers. If they only just get him a capable number 2 next to Devontae Adams to keep him healthy so he could continuously have years like that, that's the only thing that I could say for Green Bay would really help.
More help on defense. A little bit more help on defense.
Mostly linebackers. Good Lord. And even some for secondaries, I'd argue, but good God. Juju,
get that man some help.
Juju Smith-Schuster. So you know what's funny about this? I've been hearing a lot of pushbacks because of the fact of the off-field antics with, like, the TikTok thing, the dancing on the logos of the fields, all this other stuff. I've been hearing an awful lot of pushback with Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I still do think he's a valuable receiver, for one, because of the fact of he's a good route runner, and I think he's also a guy that is willing to make yards after the catch. And he's a guy, he's really just a guy that it can be used as a deceiver at times. So I feel like, and here's the other thing, Pittsburgh, they got another wide receiver. This never fails for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh over the years have been so successful drafting wide receivers. Lynn Swann, Stallworth, Hines Ward, Santonio Holmes, Antonio Brown. And then now you have this year, you got Juju Smith-Schuster, and then you have Chase Claypool. It's not like they're going to lack.
They're going to hurt.
It's not like they're going to hurt with wide receivers. So I feel like Juju's going to leave. And I think initially because of that is now, because Pittsburgh, here's what's the real problem. What the hell are you doing, Big Ben? Because Big Ben is not aging well. This era is over in Pittsburgh. Like, give me a break.
He's looking a lot like John Elway and Peyton Manning did, and at the end of their careers, he's looking pretty beat up, man. He's looking like his body just can't take it anymore. And quite honestly, is it me? Or does Juju Smith-Schuster just with all he did this season, it just doesn't rub me the right way. No. He just doesn't rub me the right way anymore, which is the disrespectful dancing on the logos, all that. It reminds me of Terrell Owens. It reminds me of Antonio Brown. It just reminds me of he's turning into this ego-driven, I don't like him. He just rubs me the wrong way. Maybe he's aiming for that to just put his name in the spotlight. I don't know. Some guys do that, but I don't know, man. It seems like he's becoming a little bit more ego driven and a little bit too big for his britches, because yes, is he a talented wide receiver? Absolutely. No doubt about it. But I don't know what it is about Pittsburgh that does this to wide receivers. It did it to Antonio Brown. Now it's doing it to Juju Smith-Schuster. I just don't know what's going on or who's pumping their egos in that locker room. But hopefully, like you said, Pittsburgh's not going to hurt without him, but they're not going to hurt with him either. So
right.
It just all depends on many different things that we just don't know too much or nothing about.
Right. So, and I think that's just, like I said, it's not like they have problems drafting wide receivers. So I feel like they're going to be fine. Like they'll
they
be
never
fine
have.
No, they never have over the years. That's why I'm just like, you know what, it'll be fine. But my last one here, Jonnu Smith. I feel like Jonnu Smith's going to stay because listen, this system that since Tannehill came in has worked. Why would you leave it? And I just feel like because and everybody had a lot of pushback on this Ryan Tannehill thing when it even first started. But all this pushback was not just on Tannehill. It was more on Adam Gase because the fact of what he really brought to the table in Miami, like Gase doesn't elevate his quarterbacks. And when Tannehill came into Tennessee with a buttoned up coach in Mike Vrabel, who is so like pro player and is also a guy that is very much defensive. And I mean, he's worked through that. He's played defensive and he's also coached defensive. So it's also been giving confidence to the guys on the offense, like Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, Corey Davis. I just don't think Jonnu Smith really would want to leave that. I think that because of the fact of the connection and the way that this offense has been placed and how it's been set up. Now, this will be interesting because they will not have their offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith, as now he's in Atlanta. So I would be very interested to see what the OC will be for Tennessee, because if they actually get the right one who still puts consistency and opens this playbook up, Jonnu Smith is too valuable to even just, let him walk on by. So I feel like Tennessee is going to retain him.
Yeah, I do as well. I mean, he's just too strong. Like you said, he's just too strong of a player and too crucial to that team to just let go like that.
And think about it, because this is a guy who stepped in when Delaney Walker was so liable in his position because he can't stay healthy.
For sure.
So that's why I just feel like that is so valuable. I wouldn't even let that thing walk by. I mean, he's a top 10 tight end in my opinion. When you look at tight ends around the league, like Darren Waller and Travis Kelce and even George Kittle, look, I know this with Rob Gronkowski and all these other guys, but this was way before then. But you just look at the value from some of these guys, and Jonnu Smith, you got to put him there in that placement, because at the same time, the other guy who's also been rising up, like we talked about with Miami, with potentially getting Deshaun Watson, Mike Gesicki. I think this guy has really showed his value, and I think Gesicki's a rising talent that he's really going to put.
And Noah Fant.
And Noah Fant, and another guy that's also like, and you think about this over the years with Denver when they had Tony Scheffler, they had
Jeb Putzier.
Oh my God. And then you had Julius.
Sorry, I had to throw that name out there.
you had to throw that name up out there. And then you also had Julius Thomas at one point. And so having Noah Fant there, because that also helped solidify their hole. Because I was very surprised they even let Julius Thomas walk. Because I just thought that because of like how he fit into that offensive schematic, I was just like, how would they even, like, it's like it was so easy to let him walk. And then of course I could kind of see him in Jacksonville, and then he gets hurt multiple times, and it's just like, oh, okay. I could kind of see where it was so easy to really kind of just, let him walk, let him pass on by. But yeah, I just feel like Jonnu Smith, he's going to stay in Tennessee. There's no way he's going to end up leaving that. So, guys, there of course was all of our insights to all of the free agents here on this list. Again, this is going to be one of those free agency frenzies. I think this is going to be a very fun and interesting one, because there are an awful lot of big time names. But because of just how interesting that this past season was for a lot of people, this is kind of one that like you kind of have to ask yourself, is it really worth kind of putting in the right price? If you could find the right price for some of these players, I just feel like that, whoever wins in either one of those free agency deals, I think you're going to find that out by the end of free agency and before we even go into the NFL draft. But a lot of these free agents, I mean, I kind of have a sense there's some of them that are going to stay, and then I have a sense these guys are going to walk because, number one, there's just too much dysfunction. They can't even come close to like contract deals, like hence Dallas and Dak. But there are a bunch of other teams that I just feel like they're going to find their scenery somewhere because it's either because they want to be paid more or because they see potentiality. They want to win a championship. I mean, this is kind of initially why Tampa was such an important, an important topic of discussion for that.
Yeah, I mean, well, and also just to be aware to those players who want to leave, beware of it because, COVID has taken everything by storm, and because of that, it's going to lower the overall salary cap. So if you want to walk, just know that it's not always greener on the other side. So you might want to think about that before you choose to walk away from your team and think that you need to get paid. Yeah.
And sometimes that does take tolls on some of these players, and it's just really, really crazy. It's just really, really interesting. And so I just feel like, like I said, I just feel like this is kind of something that, like however they're going to go about it with this, because I'm just paying more attention to the Dak situation because I want to see, I just want to see how Dallas is really just going to go about this. Because they're stuck in a hole. They're so stuck in this hole. I feel like they've done this to themselves.
Jerry Jones has done it to the Cowboys more than anybody, but yeah.
And that's the thing, when you look at it with, Jerry Jones and how he really just, the more and more you see Jerry Jones just like, really just kind of controlling things, it's not going to get any better. It's just really not going to get any better. But alrighty, guys. Well, we definitely got to end up wrapping this all up. It's definitely been a long 3 hours here up on this show, but you know what? It's been great, having to come back up on here and of course, showing off cards, talking so much about sports. And I'm just very glad to even be back here on a really good week. So, thank you guys so much. Have a great night. Be safe. And, we will catch you guys next time on the Snake Sports Talk Show. Take care, you guys.
Peace out.